Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 3 Point Weekly. We are back post the first couple of days of free agency, and although there's still a few big names to fall, it's a lot of dominoes that have fallen, and we'll discuss all of those moves and how that works with some of the draft decisions that have been made, some of the trades that have been made over the last couple of weeks, and make some of our thoughts and give some of our predictions going into the rest of this offseason and then into the season. Of course, we're going to start with the biggest news of the offseason so far with the Paul George moves and then Tyrese Maxey being back in Philly, and we'll work our way from there. But lots of shaking up at the top of the NBA. The Celtics even getting involved. They're making sure they keep their pieces around. So lots of movement that we'll be sure to talk about and discuss, and be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below as we do work through it. And as you do watch, if you do enjoy, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe. But without further ado, Gabe, Paul George, no longer an LA Clipper. Finally, there's a bit of change in LA. We might have a bit of it being induced by the lovely second tax apron that we all love to hopefully learn to understand as we move through the new CBA. But as we get into this next era in Philly, they finally use that cap space that we've been talking about. How do you feel about them using it on Paul George?
Well, we came in knowing Philly had some money. They were going to spend it on somebody, and out of the whole field of free agents, I think this is the best guy they could have spent their money on. I think it's definitely a mass improvement from them giving Tobias Harris $40 million a year to giving Paul George $40 million a year. Plus, I forget the exact number, but a max level deal. Um, and it definitely improves their roster a lot, along with keeping Tyrese Maxey. Like that three-headed monster is going to be really tough to go against next season. Really, what I'm just looking for with them is it's going to be that health. It's the same question every season when you have Embiid and now Paul George, who's also missed a fair amount of time in his own right, especially during his Clippers stint. So I think we'll have to see this season. While it looks really good on paper, I don't think it makes them like a top level contender immediately, just because we know kind of how this team has trended the past few years. And Paul George is definitely a player that comes to an asterisk of his own. Really, whether he's healthy or not, the playoff P things are going forever. Could have been overblown, but a lot of questions there. I like their depth. I think bringing back Kelly was good. Having Melton out the door is definitely suboptimal, but Jared McCain should be a solid replacement. And overall, I think this roster got better. It's just, like I said, a matter of health.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. Don't get me wrong, Paul George, amazing talent. But I've been kind of vocal about. I wish they would have went maybe a different direction, like as far as spending that money. I really feel like Maxi and Embiid as a duo is great. It's just like always the health of Embiid in the playoffs. But I feel like those two really played well last year. It's just kind of the supporting cast just didn't have enough. Those guys, I feel like they fought pretty hard. Like Nick Batum was fighting, Kelly Oubre was playing good defense on Brunson and stuff, but they were just missing, I think, a little more depth. But obviously, getting Paul George is a great ad because Paul George is one of the most portable players in the NBA. Like, I think he's underrated in that. He's been like very vocal about saying, "I'm okay taking a back seat at this stage of my career. I will be a third option if I want to. Like, I'm cool with being a role player." He said that like last year when they got James Harden in LA. So, obviously, really good move. I really love the Maxi extension. It's like I would think of around like 40-ish million a year, maybe a little more than that. Chance to make more with certain incentives and stuff. But I feel like that was a great extension. I'm glad he kind of bet on himself a little bit. Kind of a mutual understanding between him and the team last offseason. Like, we're gonna give you your money, but let's wait on it. And then he went out, had an amazing season. I think an all-star caliber season, MIP year. Like, he was great. Love that extension. And Gabe mentioned like losing like Melton is kind of tough. Losing Nick Batum kind of tough. Those guys provided a lot of versatility for them, especially defensively. But really like the Jared McCain pickup. That's somebody that had lottery type talent in this draft, could really shoot the ball. Winning player. He kind of was thrown into the fire a little bit at Duke, playing a variety of different roles last year. And he answered the call, especially in the tournament. He played really well. And kind of losing, you know, or getting Kelly Oubre back for that deal that he got, like $8 million for the basketball that he was playing last year, I think is very solid. So they've had a really good offseason. a kind of a decent balance of bringing in some guys that can help, like an Eric Gordon potentially, who had a pretty okay year last year, getting Kelly Oubre back, the draft picks and stuff like that. And then you add Paul George, which the height of this team, I think, can be one of those top contenders in the Eastern Conference. But it's really just relying on, are these guys going to be healthy when it's time? We've seen Paul George miss playoff series. We've seen Embiid. It seems like every year it's an injury in the playoffs, every single year, no matter what. He gets hurt, whether it's a facial fracture, his knees bothering him, his back, it's always something. So if they can just get one healthy run over these next couple of years, I think they can be a threat to make a deep run out in the East. But also the top of the East, for the most part, got better too. So, I'm glad that they were aggressive this offseason. I feel like they spent their money in a pretty good way.
Yeah, I don't think you can really fault them for what you did here. I feel similarly in that I think they could have done better just by adding some better role players to this group. Having Paul George isn't going to hurt. Obviously, that's not going to be a bad thing to have on your team. But like you said, Embiid and Maxey is already your star duo. And if you can add a third guy while having great depth, sure. But I think once you have the duo, especially when one of them's an MVP candidate every year when he's healthy, there's an argument that you're better off just adding role players at that point. So if they could have brought in a KCP, if they could have brought in a Derrick Jones Jr. or Najee Marshall, I think those types of guys could have been a little bit more valuable if they could have packaged a couple of those guys and brought them in with their cap space. Ultimately, that's, of course, not the route they decided to go in. So we'll see what they do with the rest of their depth. I mean, it's far from being over in terms of what they could do in the offseason. They could still look to make a trade somewhere. Now, the fact that they're in trade discussions, rumored at least to be in trade discussions, I don't really know how that works because literally everyone on their roster basically just signed a deal other than Embiid. So no one can really get traded yet. So I think they're probably going to be on hold until the new year for that. But I know someone like Dorian Finney-Smith has been someone that they've been rumored to have interest in. So an addition like that probably makes a lot of sense because they did make some good signings, like an Eric Gordon, who's fine, like an Andre Drummond, who, even though he's not amazing, is probably the best backup center that Embiid has had since he's been there at any point in time in Philly. So they did fine in that department, but that's still, like you mentioned, Melton's gone, Tobias Harris is gone, Campaign very well may not be back, Kenny Martin Jr. very well may not be back, Robert Covington, like not guys that played significant roles, but nonetheless, they still need to fill out this roster a little bit with some competency in terms of depth. So there's still some moves to be made, but I think they're in very comfortable conversations in that tier below Boston. Now, where I'll lead this to then is based on what the Knicks have done this offseason. Obviously, quiet in free agency, other than just bringing back OG. Now, of course, they lost Hartenstein, but how do we feel about this Philly team compared to where the Knicks are at?
Personally, I think the Knicks are in a better spot. Now, they're definitely less top heavy. Like the top end talent that Philly has is easily better. For as good as Jalen Brunson was, I don't think he's like the MVP level player that, even though he was kind of snuck his way into maybe getting a couple votes, he's definitely not a player the level of Embiid. Where I think they really outshine them, though, is just with their absurd level of depth still, and the fact that all them Nova boys are really sharing that responsibility of just leading this team to wins. Whereas you look at Philly, and even though Paul George being there is going to take some of that load and some of that wear and tear off of an Embiid, off of a Maxey, it's still like these guys are more likely to break down, more likely to get to the playoffs hurting. So where even though New York did end up getting pretty injured in the playoffs, I think that traditionally the way their roster's set up should be a lot more apt to going through into the 2 games, getting into the playoffs in a good spot.
I'm kind of torn. Losing Hartenstein is really, really big, and I don't think we're going to notice it until like they maybe match up with a Philadelphia, right? Because just having that depth of bodies, like you got Mitchell Robinson basically playing backup big at that point, and he's a starting caliber center in this league, but Hartenstein was playing so good for them, on both ends of the floor, blocking shots, dominating the boards, even having games where he can, give you like, maybe 14, 15 points, right? So that's a big time loss. And it kind of like I obviously love getting Mikal Bridges. I love them locking up OG Anunoby, obviously, because he was the valuable piece for them last year. Like once they got him, that defense went from bottom 5 to like a top 5 unit almost. Like they were that good with him on the court. But the Hartenstein loss is big. I think it can be big in certain matchups. It seems like they built this team for the Celtics. Like that's exactly how I feel like the Knicks did. I feel like Philly's trying to just build the more versatile unit, obviously around Embiid. I might go with Philly right now because I don't have faith in Mitchell Robinson, one being their starting center to go on a deep playoff run, and he's somebody else that is always hurt. And until I see he can have a fully healthy season, I just can't put much stock in that, at least until I see how they bolster up that center rotation, because they're going to have to, because we know how Tibbs rocks. He plays his guys a lot of minutes, and he wants to. So we're going to have to see how they rock. I would expect that if they don't really add much, Jericho Sims is going to get minutes and probably a lot of like OG at the 5, small ball 5 type of lineups too. So it's different. They do also still got Julius Randle too, which I feel like people kind of forget. But man, that Hartenstein loss is big. And I know, OKC threw a lot of money at him. So obviously they could not match that value. So, you just kind of got to bite the bullet there. They got better in some areas, but that's one that they took a big time step back, in my opinion.
I'm glad you brought up Julius Randle because, and I'm going to propose this to Devin because he's probably going to know more about the numbers and logistically making things work. But I don't know if this is hot, but I feel like Julius Randle has to be off this team by at least next offseason, like whether it's trade deadline or it's just the way this roster is constructed. You have OG out there, you have Mikal Bridges out there, like Josh Hart, like Dante, like you got a lot of guys. And Julius, the way he plays, like his shot selection being like that of your top option while having so many better, well, maybe not talent-wise better, but like as far as a fit in a cohesive team that fit way better together and that need for a center, I feel like there has to be a move there, moving Julius Randle to get more of a starting center type guy. So I'm going to throw that to Devin. What do you think they could do there to maybe have a Randle move to bring in some center talent?
It's possible. Now, the other thing to consider here is he's only got 1 year left of team control on his deal, and then he's got a player option, and it's only $31 million, which, despite all people's criticisms of Julius Randle over the year, he would get way more than that as a free agent. So there's no way he opts into that. So he's only a Knick for 1 more year in terms of being guaranteed to be there. So it is possible they just run it back with him this year, and maybe he just walks next summer. Now, as far as if they do look to want to move him, the argument is, like you say, if they do move him, they probably do need to bolster the big and get some more depth in the front court, because like you said, going into next season with only Robinson at center as a real proven regular NBA guy, that's a scary situation when you got Tibbs minutes and you got the injury history of Robinson. So they got to do something there, and free agency right now is telling you that there's like Thomas Bryant, Daniel Tice, like there's not much there. So if they could get something that flips Randle and somehow they get someone back that can give them some quality at the center spot, that would probably be ideal for them. A team that initially comes to mind, just because of Raptors fans supposedly wanting it and wanting no center role, would be Podol, because I think Podol's playmaking and ability as a push shot guy and somebody who can operate out of the short roll would be really valuable for the Knicks. I think that's going to be the biggest loss for with the Knicks with losing Hartenstein. Not that Mitchell Robinson's completely incapable of doing it, but Hartenstein just became so valuable out of the short roll, really good playmaker, really good cutter. He just knew how to operate that so well, and that's becoming very important for pretty much all of the elite teams in the league right now, whether it's Hartenstein, whether it's Lively, whether it's Porzingis, whether it's Horford, whether it's the likes of Jokic and Denver, of course. Like, most of these teams have that big, whether he's anywhere near an all-star caliber guy or not, they can operate out of the short roll and play make out of the short roll. I don't know if Mitchell Robinson's quite at that level yet. Could he get there? Maybe, but he's not there, and I don't necessarily feel positive that he's going to get to the level of those types of guys on the top end teams. Not to say the Knicks couldn't be good without it, but it's definitely going to hurt. So I think there's a world where they could explore that. As we discussed here, I'll look into some potential mocks and see if we can find anything, and we'll wrap back to it later. But I wouldn't be shocked to see them explore something. But at this point, I think there's very much a world where we just see a lot of small ball 5 lineups with Randall at the 5. Defensively, it'll be interesting, but he's a good enough rebounder for it that they could probably get away with it in a lot of matchups. But I think at least going into the season, given he's in his last guaranteed year, I wouldn't be surprised to see that be the case.
Yeah, I would think they would just, if they were to flip him, I don't think it would be the greatest return as an expiring deal. Like, there's a couple guys that could maybe take a swing on. Like, say they shipped him to Washington around like trade deadline time and got back like a Valanciunas. Probably not your long-term fix at center, but a starting caliber center. Or when you talk about like those short roll guys, I don't know if Portland would be that committed to like a Robert Williams, but that could be somebody you take a swing on who might be low risk. And, if it doesn't pan out, okay, but I don't know if he'd be that hard to get.
I don't like that just for the simple fact that then you have two centers that like are never available for long stretches of the time. It's just the whole Randall situation is just kind of tough because last year of his deal, his value on the trade market is very meticulous. Like he might be more valuable than we see guys like Zach LaVine being because his contract is affordable, but then it's the last year of his deal. So like you said, Gabe, like it's probably not going to be a great return, but I don't think they need this great return for an all-NBA player, which sounds crazy, but they don't because they really have, I think, all the makings of a team that's ready to compete for a championship. It's just that one thing, that center rotation that's just bothering me. Like it was so good for them last year with Hartenstein and Randall or Mitchell Robinson when he was healthy. That's a very good 1-2 punch, but just relying on Mitchell Robinson, it worries me. I would be very worried if I was a Knicks fan. And I see a lot of Knicks fans on Twitter like they couldn't get Goga. There was a lot of other guys in the market that they wanted. They couldn't get Hartenstein back, obviously. Like they're bothered by that. And I understand because I would be too. But like somebody like Daniel Tice would be fine. I think that would be solid enough. He's a versatile enough big. I think he's actually somebody that's been decent enough in a short role. Obviously not to the level of like Derek Lively or an Evan Mobley or something like that, but skilled enough to make some plays out of that short role, which is really all they need because they have a lot of really talented players. They have they have basically 3 guys on the roster right now that's averaged 25 points per game for like a season. Like they're fine. It's just that center rotation. They got to clean it up just a little more, get it a little more stronger, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think Tice, as far as free agents goes, makes the most sense. He's probably got the most spacing and short roll / passing ability to kind of fit into what they want to do. But yeah, someone who can just fill that role to some extent probably makes the most sense. Now, I guess the other option they could do too is if Portland were willing to facilitate something, they could go knocking on Portland's door and see if they wanted to trade one of their centers. That's probably the other option. Ayton doesn't work because the Knicks wouldn't be able to match the money. But Robert Williams, actually, there's not really a way to make this work well, is there? Not really. Yeah, it's trading in today's NBA is an interesting.
Another tough thing for them is like they're kind of in heaven right now because they have a lot of really good contracts. Like they bought lower on guys who exceeded their value, and Mikal Bridges signed his contract a few years ago. So like that was a very good, valuable deal at that time, like roughly like a little over $20 million or something like that. So they're going to have to start paying these guys soon. Brunson's contract, he's up for an extension soon. Mikal Bridges would be up for an extension. They just paid OG. So money's going to start kicking in a lot more. And then it's going to be, we know with all this second apron stuff, like it's going to be very difficult to strike, gold and make additions to get this team better. So they're kind of in that window right now where it's like they kind of have to like make something happen, I think, to bolster their roster up to make it strong for a long term because, Brunson's, not, an old guy by any means. Neither is Mikal, neither is OG. Like these are all guys that are pretty much in their prime. So you have a pretty decent window, you would hope, with this core. So now's the time to really just try and make as many moves as possible to set yourself up to where when you do hit that second apron eventually, like, you'll be okay. You bring all your guys back and everything.
Yeah. This is their year. Like we just mentioned, Julius Randle being able to opt out in a year. Jalen Brunson's under the same scenario, so he can opt out. After this upcoming season, Mitchell Robinson's only got another year. So a lot of their guys are kind of getting to the back end. And that's not to say they couldn't keep these guys around, but they're definitely going to have to start forking out a lot of money if they want to keep the core together, which very much gives them pressure to succeed this season, because if they have a flop this year, they're probably not going to be that willing to actually spend all that money come next summer.
Yeah, I think they are at an advantage with keeping their guys just due to that chemistry, the whole Villanova thing. A lot of those guys should be willing to stay, even if it is a little bit of a discount. Because, I mean, at this point, they really just kind of completed the whole roster with Mikhail as far as getting all the boys together. So I would assume they'd want a couple years of that, and I think they'd be able to make it work. I do want to address chat. The thoughts on the Lakers pretty much missing out on all the free agents. This happens every year. They're not going to be a great team. Not close to contending. Not a shock. That franchise has been in disarray for years.
I saw Tillman just got re-signed. Tillman would have been a very good ad, though. I like that shout. But it's like you said, Gabe, not surprising. But I saw a Laker account saying that this team was already just a lot better just because they got Darvin Ham out the door. Now, I'm not here to defend Darvin Ham. He was not a good coach by any means. But JJ Redick could be the next coming of Pat Riley. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference with this roster and how good the Western Conference is. Maybe if LeBron was like 7 years younger, but LeBron is aging, and that makes a difference. Anthony Davis just had his healthiest season. Hopefully he has another healthy season. But what if he doesn't? That's always a possibility with him. And just their supporting cast, it's like, okay, it's not great enough. It's not nothing compared to what their championship team was. So, the Lakers, they do Laker stuff. They always just try and swing for the fences. And in the last decade, they've only hit home runs like 2 times, and that's Anthony Davis and LeBron. And that was basically forced pretty much. So the Lakers, they don't surprise me. They'll probably be like a 7-8 seed again and play a great team in the first round and probably lose. That's just how the Lakers have been the last few years.
Give me Memphis. Give me Dallas. Give me Denver. Give me Oklahoma City. I don't even think they touched the second round.
They're at best the 6th best team in the conference, and that's just because the Clippers don't know what they're doing. The Suns will I feel like the Suns will probably win more games just off the strength of their top 3 guys. I feel like they would just win more games because of that. So they're in that 6. They're in the playing range again, which is not a surprise because they haven't done shit. Their biggest move is drafting Bronny James, who got his guaranteed contract. Shout out to Bronny.
Yeah, that's about as good as it's getting. Maybe they get DeMar, and that's about as good as it's going to get. Just before we get too removed from the topic, values could be argued in terms of picks going either way and whatnot, but I got a few frameworks that at least work financially for a Randall trade. So Randall to the Raptors for Jakob Poeltl and Ochai Agbaji. Also with Portland, you could send him to Portland for Robert Williams and Matisse Thybulle. To the Bulls, you could get him sent to Chicago for Nikola Vucevic and Javon Carter.
Nah, not moving.
And to Utah, you could send him there for John Collins and Walker Kessler.
I like that Utah deal.
Yeah, if they found a way to make Utah agree to it, it's definitely really redundant with Lowry.
But, well, I'm thinking in the sense of hopefully they just maximize the value of Lowry marketing while they can and get as many picks as possible. I like that one. I like the.
It is taking a swing, but if we think that his value's not that high, which it probably isn't, I don't see the risk in saying instead of he walks for nothing because he's more than likely opting out and leaving. I don't as far as he could leave for nothing, or you could take a swing on a guy who could be something. Now, if they could find a way to make it like a Walker Kessler or a Jakob Poeltl, like a guy who is a guaranteed thing, that's definitely your best option. But if those deals are a bust, and it's like take a swing on a guy who can be a quality center, but it's a bit of a question mark. It's like there's not a lot of risk involved there because otherwise you're just losing him for absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And Matisse Thybulle is a good piece to have as well. So if they can bring him in that, then that's a guy who's a little bit more sound as well.
That's a Tibbs guy too.
Yeah, that's definitely a Tibbs guy. So
It's just if you can guarantee me you get 55 games and he'll be healthy for the playoffs, sign me up. That's a championship caliber team. But we haven't seen that from Robert Williams in like 3 years at this point.
You
Which is
combine
the only
Mitch
thing.
and Robert, and you get one full season.
But then what if they both go down at like the same time? That's possible.
yeah, then it gets ugly. But yeah, I mean,
They'll start at fives.
I think Pirtle would be the safest one because he plays. Like he's pretty much usually always available. And yeah, I think that provides a little less like redundancy from that center spot because him and Mitch Robert two totally different big guys. So I would like that one. The Walker Kessler one is interesting, but I know they will probably have to pay him at some point. So that's like maybe a rental at that stage. So but Hurdle just signed an extension last summer, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he's got 3 years left still at 20 a year.
I would like that. I would like that.
Raptors just seem like an unlikely trade because they just did the RJ and quickly move. It's like you're kind of just everybody you're shipping out of New York, like all of them going to Toronto, and also like Randall there with Scotty and RJ. I would hate that on the Raptors side as far as like what you're getting back. Now, even if Randall's like a half-year type thing, it's just hard for them to accept that.
I think that's either it's got to become a 3-team trade, or the Knicks throw in a pick somewhere or a young player or something, and the Raptors just want to get off Poto's money.
Yeah.
Okay, Randall, you walk. I mean, I ain't saying there's good ones.
They still have a good amount of picks.
Yeah, they do. They just don't have their own, but they do have some picks. They have, what do they got? They got, that's this year's picks. A 2025 for Milwaukee that's top 4 protected. A 2025 for Detroit that's top 13 protected. Washington's 2025 first that's top 10 protected. So they still got some picks there. I think
that Bucks pick could be okay.
That's probably the best. That Washington pick is definitely going to be top 10.
Very, very deep draft next year. That could be like a 20th overall pick, honestly. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Intrigued. That would be like just trading. That's like when somebody in like your fantasy league they just trade with each other all the time.
Yeah, the Raptors only traded with I swear every trade with the Spurs for a little bit. So,
yep.
Raptors got to steal in this free agency. I don't care if the Kings were down on Davion. Like, for Jalen McDaniels, crazy value.
Yeah, who wasn't doing shit for y'all.
Might be the worst player in the league.
I like it, man. Maybe Davion's just going to be a late bloomer. It's possible.
I don't even think he's bad. Like,
he's not bad. He's just not top 10 pick good.
Yeah, but he's a fine backup. And even though he had a reduced role last year, I genuinely thought last season was his best year.
Solid last year. I think there's still something there.
Better than Malachi Flynn backup point guard minutes. So
absolutely, there are worse backup point guards in the world. So, and he's young. He was drafted a year after Quickly, a couple years after RJ. Like, fits in with the young core. Same draft class as Scotty, I think, too. So, yeah, why not take a little flyer on him for somebody that nobody wanted there anymore? So,
yeah.
So why not?
Yeah, can't really go wrong with that one.
Yeah, Knicks fans would hate Vooch. I'm just seeing that in chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we need to talk about the Bulls? That's
I'm not gonna lie. I can't lie. It's not complete yet, but I like that it seems like they're somewhat picking a direction. And I'm okay with it. I'm absolutely okay with it now. Didn't like the Giddey trade at first. Still kind of indifferent on it, but you know what? Let's go with the youth movement, man. We haven't seen that really in Chicago in some time. It's been some years since they've really just kind of tried to do that. So go ahead, be bad. Let these guys play. Hopefully, at some point, they'll find a way to get Levine off the team. Same with Vooch too, but those guys are going to be tough to move. Vooch will probably be a lot easier to move than Levine will because his contract's a little friendlier. And I think Vooch is still a solid, center in this league. Bulls fans just absolutely despise that man because they brought him in to be good, and he hasn't lived up to those draft pick that got traded for him expectations, right? But I kind of like it, man. I like the Patrick Williams deal. I'm in the camp. I feel like that could be a steal. And when we look back in like a couple years into the deal, I feel like he still has so much room to grow. He's so young. I think he's like 22 years old. Like he's still so young. Has dealt with missing time in his early career, and he's been in such a reduced role because you're playing with Levine, you're playing with DeMar. When Lonzo was healthy, the ball was in his hands, and then Kobe White got great, and the ball was in his hands a lot. So you're just like a 3-and-D wing at that point. Like you don't even really have time, like the time to really like develop into what a top 4 pick would want, right? So I'm a fan of it. I like the direction that they're going. There's still more moves to be made, but this is a lot more promising than what I could have expected their offseason to look like. I thought they were just going to try and keep buying to try and be good, but it seems like they're kind of, moving away that they should have been moving a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's better, but I need to see more. But like you say, it looks like they're at least trending in the right direction. I like the Jalen Smith signing as well. Just a nice little cheap, underrated pickup. Someone who can give them some depth at the 4 or the 5. Really efficient last year, something that Nikola Vucevic very much has not been, which Bulls fans will probably appreciate. So that's a nice thing. But yeah, Vuce's value and fit is weird. I don't hate your shout and chat there either week. I think it's weird when you get a guy at his point in time in his career now where he's never been a very good defensive center and he's seemingly forgotten how to shoot the 3. It's almost where he's at a point where he's at his offensive production from like before his All-Star days in Orlando, which was still a good center, but given that's an NBA from 7-8 years removed, that was very different compared to where it is now for bigs that aren't good defensively and also aren't really spacing the floor that much at this point. So he's just going to be a weird fit wherever he goes. Obviously a different molded player, but similar to JV and where he's still just as productive as he ever was, but his role and in turn then his value and where he actually fits is just becoming harder to actually make work. So I think Vooch is in a similar boat, but I don't mind the Warriors. But I mean, it's hard to see a spot where he can really play like 30 plus minutes a night and be a quote unquote good fit. I don't think there's many scenarios for that right now.
I don't hate the Lakers. Being so honest, I don't hate the Lakers fit because
that's fair.
Anthony Davis, they kind of have been saying they want to move him to the 4. I feel like that's where JJ Redick would want to go. And, their biggest kryptonite has been the Nuggets, like matching up with them. And I think the Timberwolves kind of showed, like, if you have a couple big bodies in your lineup, the initial defender does not have to be the best in the world. Cat's not the best defender in the world. But we just need somebody that can bang with Jokic a little bit, pause. And then we have our guy protecting the rim, which Anthony Davis as a roamer is like top 3 in the world at that. He's one of the best ever when he's put in a position where he could just roam defensively. So I wouldn't hate that. I don't know how they get it done, but I feel like that would be a pretty like solid move for a team that hasn't done anything this offseason. I think if they did that, I kind of like that a little more than the DeMar pickup, if I'm being honest.
As far as value, I think some teams might end up getting these guys on steals because all 3 of them, Zach, DeMar, and Vooch, like if they're picking this direction of going young, it seems so hard to find suitors for any of these guys because we talk about every situation. It's like a bit of a weird fit here. So if it's just taking them so long to get off these guys, but they're just, ready to get a deal done, kind of like what I was saying with Julius Randle versus them walking for nothing, might be able to get them at a discounted price. So I feel like the Lakers would be able to get a deal like that done. I feel like they'd probably target DeMar first.
Absolutely.
I know them and the Heat are like probably his top options right now, it sounds like. But, if they strike out on DeMar, that might be their next guy. But Zach LaVine was also a UCLA guy, so
they don't got the money for that though.
Nobody has money at this rate. That's why it's so hard to move Zach.
If he was making like $33 million a year, he would have been traded by now. Because Zach LaVine is still a good basketball. He just scored 50 in a game last year. Like, he's still a good basketball player. Even though he's not like nearly as explosive going to the rim as he once was, he's still a good basketball player. It's just he's not however much he has like $138 million left on his deal. He's not that good.
Is this the most untradeable contract in the NBA?
Off the top of my head, I feel like it has to be.
All three of the Bulls got DeMar's more. Not
DeMar's free agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free agent that nobody has money to sign.
Vooch is tradable. It's just a team has to have that need. Like a team will. I think Vooch will get traded before LaVine does. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Vooch for Gabe, Vincent, and Vando makes the money work.
Bradley Beal is the worst contract in the league. You're right.
Yeah, that is.
That one at least got moved, though. That one got moved. Zach LaVine hasn't. No.
Well,
that only got moved because of Chris Paul's contract.
Yep.
It's the only reason that got moved, and that was also a terrible contract.
San Antonio Spurs Chris Paul.
Oh my God, that's my favorite movie.
Favorite
movie of the offseason, man. You don't have to rush Stephon Castle at all. And Chris Paul is even at this age, man, ultimate floor raiser. That Warriors bench when he was healthy, they were running. That was the Navy. That unit was running. There was a time Kuminga was coming off the bench still, like when Moody was getting minutes. Trace Jackson, like that unit was running. They were fun. And then he got hurt midseason, which is the typical Chris Paul thing. But I love this move so much, man. This is going to be great for Wemby's year too. And also just a lot of other guys in that roster too, like Trey Jones still being there. I think Devin Vassell can benefit from having Chris Paul. Like this is a plus move. I love it. It wasn't on my radar. I didn't think that was really going to happen this offseason, but man, that's my favorite move of the offseason for sure.
Going to be up there assistant coaching with Coach Pop. That's where he's going to be, and give him one more year. He's getting his foot in the door.
Probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, no, him and Batum's a nice underrated pickup for that too. Nice vet and connected piece to have on the wing. So no, I really like what they did. It's good, solid off season to kind of. I mean, obviously they're not going to be that competitive yet, but they're transitioning well for mentality, identity, and development's sake.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that they're not trying to rush things. Like the Trae Young thing would have been like great. I would have liked it, obviously, but Wemby is 20 years old at the same time. Like no need to rush at all. Just let him develop, let him play out, and then maybe by like year 3, they'll be ready to like be a play-in type team out west. And a lot of those teams ahead of them are going to start falling. The Clippers are going to start falling. Lakers will probably start falling. Golden State's already on the downswing. Like you don't know what's going on with Sacramento. Like playing next season, the 2025-26 season will be pretty much more open than I think this upcoming season would. So take your time. Wemby's gonna be great for a long time. So just be patient with him.
Yeah, there's no rush to force it next year when there's going to be 12 teams fighting for 8 spots in the postseason. So yeah, there's no need to force that. That's for sure.
Trae's in his last year in Atlanta though.
I didn't know they got Nick Batum. I could have sworn I saw he went back to the.
Yeah, I thought he was a Clipper as well.
Could be wrong, but I think he is a Clipper.
They said he was running from Paul George.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, you're right.
Should we talk about the Clippers since we talked about the opposite side of Paul George's decisions and everything? But man, Clippers are weird spot. I want to hear you guys' thoughts because
They are a weird spot. However, I like what they've done. That doesn't mean they're going to be good, though, is the issue. Realistically, if this was like James Harden of 3-4 years ago with Kawhi and a bunch of role players, I think this is a really good roster then. But we're dealing with James Harden in 2024 and Kawhi in 2024. He's still very good, but of course injuries as always. So I think it's a very good set of role players around them. I think it's going to be a much more cohesive roster. I think the defense is going to be better. I think the buy-in is going to be better. I think the fit's going to be a lot better. Is that a better team, though, without Paul George? Probably not. I don't think they're much worse. I don't think there's going to be much of a fall off in terms of where they're at next season from where they're at this coming season, which, considering they just lost Paul George, is about as good as I can say. I think the Derek Jones Jr. pickup is going to be very good. Batum back is going to be good. I like bringing in Chris Dunn as well. I think he's going to be a really nice defensive piece for them off the bench. So defensive identity is going to be a lot better, which is what this team was always supposed to be good at from the get-go when they started this so-called Paul George Kawhi era. But I mean, you lose Paul George, it's going to be tough to ever replace that when you're just replacing them with role players. So they're going to be fine. I don't think I'm going to see a drastic fall off from them, but I mean, they did the best they could if they didn't want to go into the second apron, and that's just going to be continuing to be okay, but nothing better.
Yeah, I'm kind of just low on him. Like I don't have a ton to say. I mean, you kind of mentioned like the role players are good to bring in, but at the point they're at now, like I don't see this propelling them into title contention. But it's also not like they're blowing it up going into a rebuild. So it's kind of just like a treading water type move. It's not the most exciting season for them at this point. I mean, I'm glad they were able to get some quality guys and to replace Paul George, but it's very, very unmoving.
I guess it's cool that they kept James, given what they gave up for him. I'm with Dev. Like I like the outside other than KPJ. Why the fuck did you do that? Don't know. Outside of that, I like the other additions that they made. You know, getting Derek Jones, who's coming off best season of his career, really strong playoff run, like that addition. Getting Batum back, very good. You know, like Devin said, like the defensive identity is getting there. I just, the ceiling is just probably a lot lower without Paul George. Like they would need Harden to somewhat turn back the clock, and they need a healthy Kawhi all the way through. And that's asking a lot. But I will say Ty Lue does work some miracles. So, maybe they can just catch lightning in the bottle this 1 year, and then, maybe they can make a nice run. But, this is probably just their last year, like, that anybody will take them somewhat serious. But I'm not really that bought in. But I guess it could have been worse. James could have walked too. Like, that was possible. James could have walked too, but he didn't. So, yeah, floor is still cool, but the ceiling is a lot lower without Paul George for sure.
I don't really take them seriously now, to be honest. I mean,
didn't we all have them like as the 8th seed last year or something like that? Like we not bought in. I know that was before James got there, which they had a really good stretch, during like the middle part of the season when they figured everything out. But then injuries caught up.
I had them at 9 last year.
I think I had them like 9 or 8 or 9 too. I'm not mistaken.
I mean, they finished better than that, but we saw how that went. They lost their second guy, so it's like just not, like it's hard for me to even talk about. It's like I have no projection or like really they're a team I probably will not think about much. Like it's not like, oh, where's this rebuild gonna go? What can they do to become a contender? They're about to embrace mediocrity hard, unless Kawhi leaves, in which case they're about to embrace being trash.
Unless I see James turning back the clock, I'm not watching a lot of Clippers games this year.
No,
that's honest.
There's nothing new or intriguing about them. It's gonna be like, okay, they're gonna be good, but ceiling's not there. There's no real thought of any real fun young players that we're intrigued by. Kawhi just signed his new deal, so unless he asks out, he's not going anywhere. So, yeah, there's not really much novelty about them going into this season. It's just like, okay,
yep,
they're there, they're good.
And Kawhi does not care. That man's in Costa Rica right now, chilling, looking like Pat Bev, cooling.
There's a different team I actually am interested in that I want to ask y'all about, and
let's talk about it.
I want to shift the conversation to Atlanta. What they're doing, I got some questions here. DeJounte Murray out the door. Not that the experiment was successful. I mean, they were pretty much went from mediocre to still mediocre. But, like, you got your second best player out the door. And then you brought in a number 1 pick with Trae Young, who's probably wanting to compete by this point. I mean, I know they had that conference finals run, but outside of that, not much success. He's been here. This will be what, like year 7?
Yeah,
Damn.
What are the
2 years left.
what do you like? They got rid of DeJounte, got rid of Sadiq Bey, got rid of AJ Griffin. Like bringing in Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels. Like, these are some solid pickups. Really solid quality players. Dyson Daniels has upside. Obviously, having a number 1 pick is crazy upside. Was all too unfamiliar with this year's draft class, but I have to assume the number 1 pick has some serious upside. But this direction just feels weird for building around Trae Young. Like it doesn't feel like you're building around Trae. So what do you think?
Wrong year to assume that the number 1 pick just has extreme upside. I'll say that. Just from all the draft experts I've seen, they were giving the Hawks bad grades for taking Risachet. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, here's my thought process on it: is that if you're thinking of doing a rebuild, concerns or not, no draft workouts or not, you take Alex Sarr.
Yeah.
Because he is arguably the only guy in the draft who has, at least going into the draft process, foreseeable all-star upside. Of course, history would say there's probably going to be a couple of other guys who get there, but Sarr's the most evident guy of that. Rishajar is not that. He's probably a good to high-level 3-and-D wing, and that's kind of the projections we're expecting of him, and that's going to be a guy who can probably make an impact right away, but it's not, let's rebuild around Jalen Johnson and Rishajar. Like, 2 good players, sure, but what are those guys going to lead you to? More playing appearances? So I feel like this is the type of pick that you have to make if you're hoping to still be somewhat relevant and competitive over the next couple of years. Do they make the moves to be able to do that? I don't know. They're not showing the signs at this point that they're going to do that. They still have flexibility. Obviously, they got some picks back now that they can move. Obviously, they don't have a few of their own picks still because of the DeJounte trade. But, I mean, of course, I've advocated for it, like you're saying, Tyson. I mean, Capella, I've been advocating the trade for a long time. Last year, if his deal, that makes sense. If you're fully looking to reset, I think DeAndre Hunter makes sense. But again, then if you're looking to remain competitive, can you put DeAndre Hunter in a trade with pieces to improve? If you can, great. If not, they're probably not looking to trade him just to get picks at this point. So they're in a bit of a weird spot. Even still, it's a start. Obviously, the trade of DeJounte combo was not working, and they needed to change something. But one move was not going to solve their issues. One move was not going to make them from a mediocre team to rebuild or a mediocre team to a competitive team. They're probably still more than another one move away, unless it's a Trae Young trade and they commit to a rebuild. So I don't believe they're going to commit to anything. They should, and I want them to, but I think they're kind of just going to run this back to some extent where we got Trae Young, we got Jalen Johnson, we got Okongwu, we got Rishache in now, and let's see what we can do and hope that keeps us somewhat competitive. And I'm sure it's going to get them in the play-in because the bottom of the East is terrible. But
the 10-seed roster.
What are we actually doing?
So this is a 10-seed roster to me looking at it. That not even a playoff team. Trae has to want better.
The beautiful thing about Trae Young's career, though, it seems like he's always done like more with less talent around him. Just because when the basketball's in his hands, he's a top 10 offense. Like we said that so many times on this podcast. It's interesting because they don't have their pick next year. So I don't think there's much value in trading Trae Young.
Unless it's to the Spurs.
And you get your picks back. That's the only way I would say trade Trae Young this year, at least. So maybe they believe in Jalen Johnson that much. Maybe they just believe there's another level to his game. Like they think he has all-star potential. Maybe that's why they were okay taking Risachet at number 1 instead of Alex Sarr, who, voiced he didn't want to be there. It's definitely not a great roster. I like the fact that they tried it with DeJounte Murray. I mean, you got to try and put talent around Trae Young. They attempted it. It wasn't great. So, they cut their losses. try and get back whatever they could. I like taking the flyer on Dyson Daniels. I think he's shown some, good stuff in his young career, and it seems like they're just trying to put a lot of defenders around Trae Young. And this seems like it would be a Quinn Snyder type of team. Like you have your offensive hub in Trae Young, and you got some guys that can defend and shoot threes. And hopefully it would be a Collingwood center instead of Clint Capella. But even if Clint's there, he's serviceable still. But they should definitely move on from that while, you still can, while he will still have some type of value. And eventually DeAndre Hunter too, because then you just kind of got a log jam at the forward positions. But it could be worse for Atlanta. They could have just said, you know what, let's just keep DeJounte. Maybe, a healthy Trae Young this season, we can win 3 more games, right? Because Trae Young missed a lot of time. Maybe they would be thinking that. But this upcoming season will be probably very telling, I would say. If they are a 10 seed again and losing the play-in, then I think it's okay, maybe we should definitely entertain trading Trae Young to whoever has the best offer. But if you trade him this offseason, it has to be to San Antonio, because if you don't do that, you're just going to be ass for no reason. You're just going to be ass next year and seeing a lot of just bad basketball, which is not great. And Trae Young's still young too. He's only 25, so.
Hey, get some picks. Take Castle. Make him a part of your rebuild. I don't think it's a bad deal.
I wouldn't hate it.
I hated the DeJounte deal, though. The pieces that Atlanta got back, I don't think are bad. I almost hate the trade more on the Pelican side. I hate what the Pelicans just did.
I'm unmoved by it too. Let's talk about it, man. Let's go.
They got just off floor spacing alone, it's they got rid of both of their probably their 2 best bigs. I mean, if you want to call Zion a big, but they got off of Jonas and Larry Nance at the same time. I don't know what their center rotation really looks like right now.
Eve Missy.
Eve Missy, I think, is a solid pickup for them, but he was pick 20. He was 20. I think he was in the 20s. So yeah, a late. You're starting center banking on a pick in the 20s is late for his round. That's a little sus. Then your top 3 players, which one of them shooting the ball? Not taking shots. I'm talking about which one is spacing the floor. None of them. DeJounte Murray can shoot a mid-range sometimes. Brandon Ingram can work in the mid-range, but
no, DeJounte's a mid-range guy. He can shoot a 3 sometimes.
I mean, there's times where he goes cold from the mid-range too. He's had some stretches where that jumper is not falling. Either way, it's 2024. They have the
most redundant first 3 in the lineup I've ever seen. CJ's can't shoot the 3, obviously, but he's definitely more of a mid-range guy. He has been that his entire career. He started taking 3s a lot more because he had to. Brandon Ingram, mid-range guy. I would rather him just not shoot 3s at this point in his career. And DeJounte Murray has gotten better from the 3, but he's a mid-range guy too. So, and Zion, Zion's not even taking mid-range shots. He's going to the fucking cup.
Their offense is about to be just right.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with this team, most importantly, has been their 2 stars cannot space the floor. They can't shoot 3s. They can't create from the perimeter. This is not happening. And so then they thought, let's bring in another guy who, a little bit more perimeter creation, but still ain't spacing nor shooting the 3. This move to me tells me they have to be making a Brandon Ingram trade, and if they're not, they've lost their mind. They just have. I'm very scared that the thought process is that they're bringing in DeJounte Murray to be this very good point of attack defender, which he's just not anymore. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that for multiple years now since he left San Antonio. So hoping that you're going to get that back at this point is a little bit hopeful. Not to mention the fact that presumably if there is no Brandon Ingram trade, Herb Jones is now on the bench, which sure, offensively, it's fine, but the defense, how do you not have Herb Jones starting? Unless, again, you think DeJounte is filling in that role, which sure, you can put him in the role, but it's going to be 100% less effective than Herb Jones being in that role. I mean, you're going from a guy who's, maybe an average perimeter defender at this point in his career at best, compared to a guy who's an all-defensive caliber guy. So there has to be another move here, specifically with Brandon Ingram. Otherwise, I just don't see how this makes sense. Even still, it's a bit of a weird fit because you've still then got two of your guys in DeJounte and Zion, who presumably would be your top two, or at least two of your top three who are not shooters from the perimeter specifically. But if BI doesn't move, this is a mess. They've gotten worse.
First small ball team with no shooting. Small and no shooting. If Zion could be there with no BI trade, like you're saying, Herb's on the bench. Zion might be the 5.
Herb damn near is like one of their best shooters too.
Yeah,
Like, he shot good last year.
Developed like Herb can give them some shooting. That's the thing. Like they have shooters. Trey Murphy's there. Jordan Hawkins is there. Like they got guys that can space and shoot, but they're just like, nah, let's put more guys in front of them so they can't play.
I would rather them just like get off of Ingram for like. I mean, I feel like every trade candidate we talked about is you're not going to get a good return. I would rather them do that with Brandon Ingram. I don't think they need that much more. Maybe just bolster that center rotation a little bit. Try and find a 5 that can. I know there's not a ton out there that really stretch the floor, but try.
I keep trying to think of Orlando's guys, but like Orlando doesn't need BI, so
they don't. I mean, maybe there's a potential like a CJ trade too. Like my ideal lineup, if you think Willie Green can get something more out of DeJounte Murray defensively than what we've seen over the last 3 years, I would like him and Herb in the backcourt. Like I would be a fan of that. And whatever 3 they could get or wing, whatever, bring that in. And then you got Zion and you got whoever you got at the 5. Like that's my ideal thinking, but it's tough. It's clunky. They've always kind of had too much talent, in my opinion. They just got too many guys that can play. We saw Jordan Hawkins last year. Like when he played, really good. But he couldn't always get on the court because they just have so many bodies. So David Griffin needs to wake up. There's more moves to be made. And this is also a team that's kind of on a weird timeline of you guys got to do something. You guys got to give us some hope. You got to try and win the playoff series. You can't keep hanging on to that Phoenix series from a couple years ago. Like, we took the 1 seed to 6 games. You can't keep holding on to that shit. Zion needs to be healthy for the fucking playoffs. And they got some more roster stuff to figure out.
I feel like we were patient for such a long time. Like, I was just talking about, like, Atlanta's on, like, year 7 of Trey. Talking about – that's hilarious. Talking about year 7 of Trey, like we're going into this like year 6 of Zion. Like there's these guys, like we've waited years for them to finally build around them, and it's like, oh, people are there for 2 years, and then all of a sudden they're getting photoshopped in a Lakers jersey or a Heat jersey. Not like by this point, if you were on year 6 or 7, you should have something to show for it. Like the Mavericks are going into year 7 of Luka and have
contending
two conference finals appearances and a finals appearance. And that came like the last 3 years. So it's not like there was like something like some anomaly at the beginning. So it's like you get this far and you have nothing to show for it. Like, what are we doing here?
Let's stay in this draft class. John Morant's had much more success, much more playoff success than the Pelicans as a whole, and especially Zion, who hasn't played in the postseason. Like stuff like that. Like you should like. I think I mentioned last week. Like Trey's probably like been looking at what Luka's. He has been looking at what Luka does because he's, like, oh, I'm so happy for Luka. I know you might be happy a little bit for your guy, but you're probably also pissed because you're like, damn, I was traded for this guy on draft night, and he's in the NBA Finals, and I'm over here with the first pick in a weaker draft class. As far as top star talent goes, right? I feel like Zion's probably looking over too, like, damn, like I need to get to that level too, what John Morant's doing. Like we're talking about John Morant coming back. I see a lot of people are just bought in off of that with the Grizzlies. Like John Morant's going to be back and he should be playing basketball. That's good enough to make the Grizzlies like a top 6 team out west. So, the Pelicans, very, very confusing team, very confusing all season. I'm starting to lose faith in them, man. I can't lie. I need to see a little more as far as like transactions go for them because this roster's just, it's fine. Like they have talented players, but the fit is clunky. This is not 2K. You can't just tell guys to start shooting threes. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, they've done the drafting talent part very well. and they're currently struggling with figuring out what pieces fit and what don't fit, and how we actually build a roster out of that. Which some people kind of overlook, but especially when you draft well, is something that you have to very much pay attention and do a very diligent job of.
Yeah.
They could still recover, but evidently they have not done a very good job of that so far.
And they handled the Anthony Davis trade as well as you could have, compared to the other offers that they were getting from like Indiana and other teams that were kind of in the mix for AD. They handled that as well as you could have handled that. You got back an all-star in Brandon Ingram, a high-value role player in Josh Hart. You got draft picks and Lonzo Ball, who, before the injuries was a very capable starting point guard in this league. And you fix his jump shot. Like, they hit that shit out the park. Like, they've done everything well except for just, like, figure out how our talent fits together. It's odd. And they've even went through the head coaching cycle. This is Zion's third head coach with Willie Green, and he's been good. He's a really good coach. They've done everything except for how does this talent find cohesiveness on the court? How does this all fit together? You're muted, Gabe.
I feel like you just have to make like consolidations. Like take two of these guys who are like good value rotation pieces, trade that in for like a starting caliber guy that fits with you. Like when you have 12 guys who can play rotation minutes, let's bring that to like 9 guys. But we're a little like we talk about top heavy teams being bad, but they're like at the opposite end of the spectrum where they're so bottom heavy. Like Zion is a great player. I don't think he's a championship number 1, but this is definitely the core that could surround a championship number 1 and get the job done.
He might, if he could be healthy, he might be. Like we really don't know.
I don't think it's championship number 1. I think he could be a number 1 on a really good team. If I had to compare a ceiling to a Zion-led team, I don't know who the guy would put right now, but like I could see him taking them to like a second round, maybe 1 or 2 conference finals if he had like a good roster around him, was healthy for a solid stretch of time. But where they're at now, it's like they feel like they have so many pieces, and yeah, we're getting redundant at this point, just repeating the same points. But they could flip for way better.
We are start making some damn moves, David Griffin. Like they can't walk into the season with Brandon Ingram on this team. Yeah. I like BI too. I think he's a very good basketball all-star caliber talent when he's healthy, but they just can't do that.
No, not the right scenario. Don't know how it happens, but they need a Devin Booker. That's what they need.
Maybe next offseason.
Devin Booker and Zion, that's a duo you can start working with.
That moves me. D-Book's still young as hell. He's not even old, which is crazy. Like you said, year 7 for Trae Young. I'm like,
think about it. Like
that's crazy.
Anthony Edwards was 2 years after Trae Young, and I know they already had way.
He's
more
going into year 5. Yeah.
Like they had way more pieces in place already with like Cat and like Point, all that kind of stuff. But like they've been way further already. They've been doing conference finals. The Pelicans can't say that. I do want to let's move on though, since we've been talking about the same team who's not making moves forever. I feel like there's a big move that we got to get to. We're an hour deep. Klay Thompson is no longer a Golden State Warrior.
Can we talk about Dallas first?
That's what I mean. I want to go to Klay moving to Dallas, because the Warriors don't move me at all. But I don't even have anything to really say about them that's positive or interesting. So yeah, Dallas. I want to talk about Dallas because Klay Klay shot 0 for 10 in an elimination game. Go into any comment section, right? But this is a big piece for the Mavericks, I think. Like, I know he was missing some open looks last year, but I don't know. The looks that you should be getting next to 2 shot creators, the caliber of what Dallas has, this has good fit written all over it. And I feel like I was talking last week about, like, if he goes to a team, I think we were more talking about Orlando, but I'm like a team where his role is reduced. He just gets good looks, sits in the corner, maybe can put in a little bit more effort on defense just because he's being asked to do less. I like this a lot. Talk to me.
To me personally, these are my winners of the offseason because it's tough to lose in the finals and be that. I feel like they were really just overmatched, like in a big time way in the finals. Maybe Boston was just that good, but I was kind of worried going into this offseason, like maybe this is just like as far as they can get. But I feel like they got better, honestly. Look, Derrick Jones Jr. had a really good year last year. Like I can't deny that. He shot the 3-point shot better than he ever has. I'm gonna just be honest. I thought it was kind of fluky. And I feel like that's how it was when it got to the finals. I said on Twitter multiple times, I'm like, Joe Mazzulla is gonna make him shoot and make him knock down shots. And he did not knock down shots. I don't think he hit like that many. He might have hit like 2 or 3 in the series. Like he did not shoot the ball well at all. So he was a really good defender for them. He took on a lot of defensive assignments. I thought the shooting was fluky. And I like how they replaced him. You got Quentin Grimes by getting rid of Tim Hardaway Jr., who was just eating salary. He didn't make a shot for a month. He was just eating up money. Doesn't guard, like he was just eating up money. And you gave us some second round picks. Like that is a good flyer on a guy who had a down year. And we've seen Quentin Grimes at his best be a capable 3-point shooter, really good point of attack defender. I like that move. And Najee Marshall, we're just talking about the Pelicans having too much talent. He was one of the victims of them having too much talent because he had a really good season the year before, but then they get really healthy and everything, and it's like, oh, he's falling back to like getting like 15 minutes a game. There's somebody that really active defender, really aggressive defender, and has shot the 3-point shot pretty good in the last couple of years. I like that, and he's going to get a lot of open looks, like Gabe mentioned, playing with Kyrie and playing with Luka. And then Klay, I mean, even though Klay's low moments were so bad last year, I think he also fell victim to the Warriors needing him to be like the original Klay Thompson because that roster was just not good. And outside of Steph Curry, they just like needed Klay to be like an all-star version of himself, and he's not that anymore. But him being at the most the third option on this team, potentially, I think will just prove wonders for him. Just catch and shoot. Klay, you're going to get corner 3-point shot, just wide open looks. We might run a few actions for you again, but you're going to get a lot of wide open looks just by playing with these two all-star, superstar players, right? A+ move, and not a lot of money committed to him either. I love their all season. Maybe they just still have some stuff to figure out, like when it comes to the lineups, like, who are we starting with? I think everybody assumes Klay starting. I feel like there's a possibility like they might be better off with him coming off the bench just because I don't think he's the same point of attack defender. He still can guard, but guarding like point guards and stuff like that, I don't think he's that level of Klay Thompson anymore. But they got a lot of flexibility. Lively's going to continue to improve. PJ Washington full season there. Same thing with Gafford. And then Luka is only getting better. Kyrie Irving, I don't see him getting worse anytime soon. Really good offseason, man. And they replaced guys that I think were kind of negative to them in the playoffs. Like teams were letting Josh Green shoot. Teams weren't worried about Tim Hardaway, and they were attacking him on the other end. Teams were letting, other guys like Derrick Jones Jr. just shoot open shots. Now you got like really respectable guys and one of the best shooters of all time who's still shooting the ball really good. He's shot 38% at least over the last 3 seasons. So I love this offseason for Dallas.
Yeah, I'm really a fan of what they did too. Like you said with Grimes compared to Tim Hardaway Jr. and that improvement. At least if Grimes' shot isn't falling either, at least you're getting good defense, which automatically is just an improvement compared to what you're getting from Tim Hardaway on a regular basis. And I'm not too concerned about the 3-point shooting concerns from Grimes last year. I feel like if anything, it's just overblown. I mean, he didn't shoot the ball quite as well, but he still was shooting over 36% with the Knicks. And then it was ugly in Detroit, but he played like 4 games in Detroit. So not exactly a sample size I'm worried about. And I like you mentioned with Klay, it's a lot cheaper than I would have expected. It's really good value on that end. And like you say, they're not going to have to rely on him as much. I do hope he comes off the bench. I don't know that he will. I think the name aspect and the recognition aspect might give him the starting job, but I think especially in the defensive end, having Najee Marshall in there makes a lot of sense. And then when you come to the postseason, regardless of which way they go about it, like you say, you're not going to rely on him as much. And if he is having an off shooting night and the defense isn't where you want it to be, okay, that's fine. Let's just rely on Najee Marshall more. Let's rely on PJ Washington more. Maybe we don't have to give Klay 30 plus minutes on that given night, and we don't have to rely on him to drop 20-plus points. So obviously you want him to play well, but in Dallas, the looks aren't going to be as difficult, and you're not going to have to be relying on him as much if it is an off night. You're not going to be forced to play him and then suffer defensively, even if the offense isn't going well. So I think there's a lot more versatility, and you can not necessarily hide him, but there's other options in Dallas if he doesn't exactly have it on a certain night. As far as Najee Marshall, I mean, we've both talked about this week. Very much was going to be a guy that was going to be very impactful for whoever signed him going into free agency. Now, someone could also argue, too, that last year's three-point shooting was a little bit fluky for Najee Marshall compared to where he's been at throughout his career. He was 30% in year 3, 20% in year 2, and it's not like he's had a ton of volume, but the form, the mechanics, the feel, the release, it all looks a lot more natural, a lot more comfortable for Marshall. It's also a lot quicker compared to Derek Jones Jr.'s release. So I think there's a lot more to like there, and I think there's a lot there with his mechanics that look a lot more translatable to maybe not shooting 39% from 3 again, but probably a little bit more respectable across the league and will give a little bit more spacing than Derek Jones Jr. will. So I think there's a lot to like. Like you said, Reek, I didn't know if there was a scenario for them to improve. I thought maybe they'll retain Derek Jones Jr., and that might be about it. I didn't really know that there was going to be many options for them to improve this offseason, but they surprised me. Kudos to them in their front office. They're going to be in as good of a chance to run it back compared to where they were this year, if not even better in terms of what they've done this offseason. So, yeah, I mean, you can't really ask much more for them. They're one of the clear winners of the offseason.
Teams who build around a duo, it's just, this is the recipe to success. Forever, I will always be. And I think just objectively, the facts of the matter is the best teams have 2 top-level guys. And then they just fill out this roster with a Klay Thompson, with a PJ, with Najee Marshall, with all these guys who can just fill in the roster, play the roles they need to, and let the top 2 guys carry them to the promised land. Not carry is the wrong word to use, but lead them to the promised land. As soon as teams go chasing that third guy, Klay is a big name, but the money is more role player than big third guy. With them building this roster in the way they have, like, this is not only makes them look good on paper right now, but is also just sustainable. So many of these teams just don't look very sustainable. Like, I don't know how high I am on a Milwaukee going into next season. I'm definitely not high on Phoenix. These teams that buy in, I mean, the Clippers bought in on like a James Harden. Paul George just walked for nothing. It's looking bad. This is the way.
Especially when you got Luka, he's done more with less. Like, he's done more with a lot less. Like, before Jalen Brunson blew up to this MVP candidate type of player, like, done more with less. Like, Spencer Dinwiddie was one of their top guys. Like, Luka's that good. You give him a killer like Kyrie who can take over in stretches of the game where maybe Luka's not as efficient, not as effective. And, you know, Klay's honestly always been a role player. He's just the highest end of role players. Like, that's just how good Klay is. It's like the Derek Whites, the Drew Holidays in Boston. Like, he's that level of role player, the ultimate role player who can just do a lot of different stuff. So I think seamless fit. I mean, and like Devin mentioned, like, if Klay's not playing well, you have versatility, you have options, you have a lot of different ways that you can go. So they hit this offseason out of the park, in my opinion. Like Gabe mentioned, they don't need no third star. That's not why they lost to Boston. They just needed to try and upgrade their role players as best as possible. I think they did a good job of that. So no complaints for me. There's a lot of teams that did great this offseason, but I think they had my personal favorite offseason.
Yeah, they're up there for me for sure. Probably up there with their counterparts in the West and OKC.
Let's talk about them.
I think they're right up there next there too. And similarly, they kind of did exactly what they needed in terms of addressing their weaknesses. Of course, Isaiah Hartenstein's the marquee signing, and they needed size. They needed depth at the center position. They needed to improve their rebounding. Hartenstein does that. Now, there's been concerns raised, of course, with how that impacts their offense because, of course, they were basically exclusively 5-out last year because, of course, Jalen Williams would come in off the bench as their smaller 5. And that was about the extent of their center rotation for the most part. So that'll be an adjustment because obviously Hartenstein's not going to be regularly sitting out on the 3-point line, although he has occasionally hit some. But I don't expect that to become a regular thing. I'm not concerned. He's a very good cutter. If someone really wants to get aggressive on him on a closeout, he can take him off the dribble. And I would just expect there's a ton of short roll action with Hartenstein, with Shea and Hartenstein, just pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll. And then now you have shooters everywhere. You don't have that Josh Giddey concern. And of course, Josh Giddey as a screener, nowhere near as impactful compared to what you're getting with Hartenstein. And now you have Jalen Williams or Lou Dort or Alex Caruso, who of course was a great addition, or an Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, who just got their new contracts, which was a great deal of business. So they can just run that like crazy, and Hartenstein can kill them out of the short roll. Shea can drive and kick. Shea can get fouls. I mean, that in and of itself is perfect for them. And an already good defense just got better with Caruso. I mean, already were tops in deflections. Defensive rating was amongst the best in the league. Now you got Dort and Caruso who are going to be out there hounding guys. And Shea and J-Dub are already great defenders in their own right. So they strengthened their strengths, and they addressed their biggest weakness was the non-shooter in Giddey and needing more size and rebounding, and Hartenstein covers that. How they're going to mix match those rotations, does Hartenstein start in certain matchups, does he come off the bench? Sure, that's to figure out, but they got a whole season. It's not like this is a deadline move where they're trying to figure it out with 30 games left before the playoffs. So I'm not concerned. I think there's, although a different offense than last season, I think it still fits what they want to do. It fits their identity. And defensively, fits perfectly. Caruso, no concerns about fit with him. So I don't know if I quite know that I want to declare them the best team in the West yet. We're still too early in the offseason to do that. But at the very least, they're going to be in the conversation. They've killed this offseason as far as I'm concerned.
Solidified contender moves to me. Both of the big moves, like Josh Giddey's fit was just not working there. So getting off of, if they would have got off him for nothing, an addition by subtraction. But the fact that they were able to bring in a piece as good as Caruso, him and Hartenstein both, to me, like, even if they're not the oldest players in the world, I feel like they bring a little bit more of that veteran aspect. At least, like, their play style feels that way, even if they're younger, if you kind of get what I'm trying to say. But for the past year, I've been coming on this platform and saying, yeah, I really wish OKC would just get a big body that they can have out there next to Chet. Play Chet minutes on that help side, have him be the weak side defender, and just have a guy who can really get down there and bang with the best bigs in the league. Pause. But they went, and as far as all guys that they could have got to fit that role, like, they literally went out and got the best guy for that. So it's just so consistent with what I've been begging for them to do that I can't help but love that deal. And then for as much as I've slandered Alex Caruso's name, as far as objectively making the team better, whether or not he's fouling, which he is, he's going to get the calls, and he's going to
get away with it.
Disruptor. Like, he's going to get away with it, and he should be able to seamlessly fit into any lineup they play. So I think just any of their top, like, 8 or 9 guys can all play with each other and have an effective lineup out there. So this team feels flexible. They're young. They have energy. I feel like this adds some veteran presence. And it feels like from all angles, like, this team is now built to finally just go into that contender direction, be full out. Like, this feels like they've transitioned from young upstart team into, okay, we're going to be a contender. What I find most shocking is it didn't take any of those picks. Like, they got all these picks, and I always thought it was going to be, okay, we have all our guys, and now we're going to cash in some of these bodies and a bunch of our picks to really cash in and get, like, a home run. And then they got, I mean, Hartenstein might not be an all-star, but as far as free agents this offseason,
Home run.
a home run with none of the big C's. That's
I remember like this might have been either off season or two ago, but it's when we were still like higher on DeAndre Ayton, and we were like, I mean, that could be OKC's future big, you know, to play alongside Chet. Like DeAndre Ayton could be that guy. And obviously, a couple years later, different tune and everything. But I mean, you can't look at this offseason from them and not think they're not going to be one of the top teams out west that's really in contention, which seems crazy because this is their second year that they're going to be a playoff team. Insane. But I love the move. Look, they were already playing with a non-shooter last year. Giddey cannot shoot the basketball. I would rather it be from my five who can play make a little bit out the short roll and is good on both ends of the floor. I'd much rather have that, you know. So 5-out's overrated anyways. Nobody really runs 5-out consistently in the NBA anymore. Even Boston with their all-shooting lineup, they still don't run 5-out a lot. Like it's kind of rare that they do that. So they'll be fine. I trust Daigneault enough to know how to integrate a great player in his role like Isaiah Hartenstein is. And this will give Chet the ultimate flexibility defensively to roam a lot more. Just lineup versatility, positional versatility. They got two of their most important role players back on really good deals. And they get Alex Caruso for trading a guy that everybody knew in the world that they did not want Josh Giddey on this basketball team anymore because he doesn't really help what they need help with. And Caruso's a big upgrade over that. So this team, look, if you Devin, if you wanted to say they're the best in the West, I'm not mad at it. They've had arguably the best offseason out West. And there's like Garrett's in chat, like there's still potentially even more moves to make for them. Like that's the crazy thing. Like, because like Gabe said, they have all these draft picks still. They still have guys that will have value in open market. Like this team is set up for the now, they're set up for the future. Sam Presti, he's been cooking for like 15 years and he continues to cook. This is the best executive in basketball. Even though I'm biased towards Brad Stevens, but I got to give Sam Presti his flowers. He is amazing. And I feel like this team also impressed in their first playoff run too. Like they took Dallas to 6 games. That series was not easy for Dallas. Luka did not play great. Kyrie didn't play great. Dallas had to grit that series out. It took PJ Washington having the best shooting stretch of his career for them to really take control of that series. And they made quick work of a Pelicans team in the first round, which I was impressed for that being their first playoff run. They swept the hell out of them. Impressive. So this team, I think they're going to come into next season a lot of confidence. Fuck around, win 60 games. Like that's how good this team is. They won 57 last year. Like they could be that much better in the regular season too because they're young and they're going to try and gun for that 1 seed again. So A+ off season. Every move they made, I think, was just excellent.
Repeat's crazy, Garrett. That's an insane shot. I think they'll probably get one, but in this league, barely anybody even gets 2.
It's tough to get one.
Look, listen. We thought Denver was like damn near a lock to go back to the finals, right? Like we thought, when they won in 23, we're like, this team's they're going to be around a while, and I don't know if anybody else is really on that level. Didn't win last year, and now they got worse.
Now it's like, now they got worse. Might be that team. And I'm even hesitant to say that about Boston because it's just like I said, it's tough to win 1, damn sure tough to win 2. Like that's not easy in this league. This current league where we've been asking for parity for so fucking long, and we finally got it. And next season it could be another new champion, and that would make like 7 straight seasons or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it will. I mean, Boston has probably the best chance to repeat in the past couple teams. Like I think better than the Raptors, better than the Lakers, better than the Warriors, better than all of these teams. Denver had a good shot, but went out in the second round. We can get into it more in depth later if we want. I think their window might be closing. That depth is looking a little scary, but Boston, they might have like a 1 or 2 year window, and then that might start to close too. But there's a lot of teams coming. Like I'm sure Luka's probably hungry to win one. The Thunder are upcoming. We talk about putting Memphis back in the mix. There's a lot of teams out there that are on their way.
Yeah, it's tough. And I get your point to an extent, Garrett, where like they are younger. Most of these guys haven't got their extensions yet outside of SGA. And then, of course, Wiggins and Isaiah Joe just got their deals. But they still have a lot of team control for a long time. But, I mean, it's where they're at even with Boston now. I mean, good as they are, they got everyone locked up for a couple of years. But then beyond that, unless they win back to back to back years, do we want to hang out at like 190, 200 mil payroll continually in the second apron year and year over again? Probably not. Not to mention the fact that, again, then it becomes very tough to keep your depth, which if you draft well, it's fine. If you're in the second apron, you don't even get your mid-level exceptions. You don't even have that to use anymore. So, again, it becomes very difficult if you have that absurdly high of a payroll, which to win, most teams are going to have. Not everyone, but most are going to have. At least maybe after they win the first one, then, okay, we got to extend a guy or we got to pay a guy on a new deal or something to that extent. Now, OKC might avoid that if they win that first one early enough, just because they're going to be on their earlier deals. And then the other thing that's going to help them compared to anyone else is all of those picks. They're going to have an opportunity to replenish depth like no one else. Now, at the same time, they're going to have to make some decisions on those pretty soon. They got 5 first-round picks potentially next year if they all convey, which they very well might not, but there's a potential for that. But I'm beyond worrying about that at this point because they've continued to manage that well. Very much to the contrary of what we were talking about with the Pelicans earlier. They've had no issue being, okay, this is our guys. We're paying them. We're keeping them around. This is not our guys, letting them walk, or we're trading them, and we move on. And now for some guys, that's meant you've had your guys like Poku and the likes of currently what looks like an Ousmane Dieng and guys like Trey Mann, who you might not get much back for. But when you got 30 plus first round picks over the course of a decade, you kind of just live with those casualties and be like, okay, we tried, it didn't work out. Let's take another 4 guys the next year. We keep the guys who we like. And if we don't, okay, thanks for your time, but we're moving on. So they are in the best position because of that compared to anyone else. But even still, I mean, it's going to be absurdly difficult in the landscape of today's NBA to win that many, never mind in a row.
That's exactly what Danny Ainge did too with the draft picks. Like, I mean, obviously he had the obvious hits like Brown, Smart, Tatum. Rozier was a good one, but there were a lot of misses too. Like Yabusele was a miss. I'm forgetting Ante Zizic was a first round pick. Like there's Romeo Langford, Aaron Nesmith wasn't great in Boston. Like there's a ton of misses too. But it's like we got like 77 picks. Might as well just keep swinging at that point. But I don't know. OKC, I think they'll be fine. There's a reason why like him, Presti, and Brad are like the 2 probably best executives right now in basketball. And it seems like they've kind of planned to build their like window around the new CBA. Like people were confused on why Boston, like they're like, oh, how do they have all this money? Well, it's because they gave out a lot of extensions last offseason, which won't kick in until like next year. I think Porzingis kicks in this year. I think JB's kicks in this year, but Tatum still has another year on his current deal. Drew Holiday's won't kick in until after next season. Same thing with Derek White, or Derek White might actually be like 2 years down the line. Like that's why like they planned out these extensions. They're not scrambling to try and make this roster better like some other teams that are, against the cap, which is why the Clippers weren't able to, bring Paul George back and everything. So that's why, like, you just kind of trust those guys in those front offices to make the right moves, to make the right trades that they can, signings, extensions, because they've really shown us no reason not to really trust what they're building. So that's why I think those are the 2 teams that probably have the best chance to, eliminate some parity in the NBA. I'm not really that worried about KP's injury either. I saw Garrett said that, because sit out until February if you have to, KP. Just be ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, they'll be fine either way. But I mean, Boston are spending a lot of money, even with those extensions. Like they're at 194 mil on the payroll as it currently stands, which is a bit over the second apron. But like, there's nothing stopping anyone from paying up to that second apron unless you hard cap yourself via trade like the Knicks did. But if your team's good enough like Boston, why not run it back for a couple of years, pay everyone, and you're good to go. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. It's just whether ownerships are going to be willing to do that based on A, willingness to spend, and B, are you good enough? If you're the Suns, sure, we'll still spend $213 million next year, even though we're a pretty okay to above average team. But then, of course, you got teams like Golden State who had absurd payrolls for the last few years. And I was like, yeah, no, okay, we're dropping that by like 60 million this year. So it's willingness to spend has always been important, but especially now with the second apron, it's going to be even more important.
It worked for them too, Golden State. You got
Yeah.
4 championships out of spending a lot of money. So
Exactly.
if you want to win, that's what you got to do. I guess Gabe kind of mentioned it. I think Denver got to be like one of the biggest losers of this offseason.
Got to be.
It's
They have nothing that moves me whatsoever.
The depth is, oof.
Yeah. They.
Facts, Garrett.
It's
tough. I saw Garrett might be trolling talking about Hunter Tyson, but it's like at this point they're relying on one of those guys on that bench that have not really played much to do something, and they've kind of struggled in that department of developing those guys. Like Zeke Naji hasn't turned into anything. They got Julian Strother on that bench. Christian Brown's been good; he's been solid for them, but his role is going to be even bigger this year. Peyton Watson's role, they'll probably need a lot more out of him, other than those 15 minutes of what he was getting last regular season and not much in the playoffs. Like they're going to need these guys to grow up quick if their window wants to get extended at all. They'll still be great because they have Nikola Jokic. They still have Jamal Murray. But other than that, man, it's rough. Like their depth got worse. Already wasn't good, but it got worse.
Yeah, they are asking some of these young guys to step up and fill roles without really showing flashes that they can do it. Like this really all started last summer with Bruce Brown. Like, this has been a theme now over the course of multiple off seasons. It's like, okay, Bruce Brown, you got your payday. Now Christian Brown's going to step up. And he was good in his rookie season, but he wasn't exactly showing flashes of I can be what, at least in the playoffs for Bruce Brown, was one of the best 6 men in the league. And of course, then Christian Brown did not do that. Still a fine second season, but nowhere near that level of production. And so then again, now KCP leaves, and it's like, oh, okay, well, you didn't quite meet the Bruce Brown role, but somehow you're going to fill the KCP role. And then you're saying, okay, Peyton Watson, you couldn't fill the Jeff Green role, so now you're going to go to the Christian Brown role. Like, they're asking guys to do things without actually meeting the previous expectations of their current role. And it's like, oh, that's okay. You can do the better role now. So they're asking for a lot. If they can really get the internal development, sure. But the flashes just haven't been there. Peyton Watson, 3-point shot needs to improve. Julian Strother, consistent minutes weren't really there last year regardless. Holmes, he might have to come in and help immediately, which he probably can to some extent, but as a rookie on a contending team, it's a lot to ask. So they're in a tough spot. Like you guys mentioned, their depth already wasn't great, and it's now quite bad. So unless some of these young guys take a jump, which maybe they do, but I'm not exactly banking on it. As crazy as it is with Jokic, and as great as he has moments of in the postseason and Jamal Murray, I don't know if I can look at them as one of my top tier teams in the West going into the next year, unless they knock it out of the park with some mid-level exception signing. Like maybe they still bring in a Gary Trent or something, but
That'll be okay.
I'm not exactly waiting on that.
They're so top heavy. They damn near, it's crazy because for as well built as they were literally a year ago, they feel almost as top heavy as Phoenix. Like, at least their top four is really good and fits really well together, whereas Phoenix's is a lot of redundancy. But you look at Denver's roster now, and it really is like 4 guys, and then we just heard you talk about all the depth. I don't need to go back into that. Losing KCP is a huge one. I think losing Reggie Jackson's a pretty big loss too. Like, he wasn't playing a ton. He was like a 10 minutes a game guy in the postseason, but for the regular season, I mean, that's a lot of rotation minutes. So you're really stretching your top guys standing. You know, the playoffs is one thing and the most important thing, but kind of like what I was saying with Philly earlier, like versus the Knicks, the 82-game season is a long time. And if you want 4 guys to get you through 82 games, and give you like a good seed to, get that home court advantage, to get some solid first round matchups in a conference that's going to be pretty deep, you probably want a top seed, because if we say the top 6 are really close, you really want to face one of those playing teams. So they might stretch their top 4 guys way too thin.
If people don't know some of those names on the Nuggets roster that are potentially going to get minutes next season, I'm not mad at them, because it's just a lot of guys that have not played meaningful NBA minutes. So I feel like they're relying so much on Jokic being MVP level, best player in the world, and he got worn out last year in that Timberwolves series. Like, he was great in that first half, but as that game wore on in Game 7, he was gassed. He was gassed. They were beating him up badly. Like, he went from dominating the offensive boards to getting dominated on the offensive boards by Nars Reed. Like, it was just complete 180. So depth wins in this league. We've seen that, even if it's not a 9-man deep rotation that's just full of really good players like the Knicks. The Celtics' top 6 was so good, and they had guys that can come in and play spot minutes like Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard. And a lot of teams are just not built like that, and Denver's one of them. The Suns are one of them. Their depth are just not near what it needs to be for a championship team, which is just worrisome. And a lot of teams, I think, took step forwards this offseason out west. OKC, Dallas, the Timberwolves, I think, got better through the draft. And then you see Denver getting worse. Clippers took a step back. Suns, nobody really believes in them anyways. Memphis is going to be back. Like, the West is only getting better at the top. So unless you just want to rely on, Nikola Jokic being the best player in the world, and you just hope Jamal Murray has that 2023 playoff run instead of the 2024 playoff run, and Michael Porter Jr. doesn't just become a complete nothing on offense like he did in that Timberwolves series, instead of improving the team, it just makes no sense to me. The Reggie Jackson move was kind of weird to me too. I agree with that, Gabe. Yeah, not a fan of their offseason. They've taken I think a pretty drastic step back, honestly.
Yeah, unless they hit it out of the park on some minimum guys, yeah, it's not looking great. Which there might be a couple. I mean, Jay Crowder's got to go somewhere. Ricky Bullock's got to go somewhere. Darius Saric has got to go somewhere. Potential that a couple of those guys get a mid-level exception from somewhere, but the more of those that get used up, of course, the less likely that is. So they might get some serviceable pieces, but and even again, Kanshar's gone too, unless they bring him back. And again, not a great piece, but hey, somebody could play some minutes and be okay off the bench sometimes. And he's probably gone too. So,
Justin Holiday's still there. He's 35.
Justin Holiday is still there. They're going to need him.
He was playing like playoff minutes for them. Like, that's
He was.
Look, he was okay in those minutes too. But it's just like, bro, you got other teams rolling off Nickeil Alexander-Walker off their bench, and these guys are rolling off Justin Holiday at this stage in his career. Like, it's rough.
It is rough. But yeah, we'll see if Jokic can do enough. But
it's a lot.
It's definitely relying on a lot of Jokic. Yeah, it's definitely asking a lot.
We saw how that ended. It's not going to be as bad as it was in 2021, 2022.
Like, can they get something out of Jalen Pickett? Somebody on that bench has to be better than what their production was saying or their minutes per game were saying last year. It would have been nice to get Gary Harris back, but I don't even know if they could afford him for what he got in Orlando.
Yeah, they could have thrown in the mid-level exception, but
no, they're bogus then. But maybe they just don't have a good relationship. that's definitely possible. They traded him after all.
If they traded me, if they got a title, I wouldn't want to go back either.
Yeah, and there's not even really much avenues for them to get better via trade either, is there? Because
no, I mean either it's their core 4, who unless they trade one of those guys, which would probably have to be MPJ, which don't expect them to do, nor do I know how they make a trade that actually improves their roster that way. Outside of that, no one's making money. So the only guy who's making more than $5 million a year is Zeke Nagy at $8 million. And
what a disappointment.
Yeah, so tradable by itself, but you're not exactly matching salaries to get anyone good back. So
yeah, all due respect to Zeke, but what a disappointment.
Yeah, he has not lived up to the potential for sure. But another guy they're going to have to rely on unless Deron Holmes comes out of the gate. Like absolutely crazy. So
Can't be worse than what Zeke's been giving them, which is nothing, essentially.
true. Or maybe they're just going to run DJ again. They'd re-sign him. They're one move of free agency.
That man DJ will always have a job in the NBA. Who would have thought that he would last longer than Blake Griffin? Not me.
He lasted on Denver for quite some time, man.
Jesus, I didn't realize Zeke was that bad last year. My God.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad.
Oh man. After he got paid, oh brother.
Yeah, it was not a season to remember.
Brother. Okay. Did we miss any like notable teams?
We could shit on the Pistons.
You know what? I actually got some apologies. You know, I feel like I was a little harsh on draft night when they took Ron Holland. After listening to him talk and everything, I like the move a little more. I like it a little more than what I did on draft night. It's going to be a slow burn for them. They're going to have to develop him, Asar. If Ivy's going to be on the team, it's going to be a little bit of a slow burn. I like getting Cade's extension done. The JB move, I'm very indifferent on, just because the man just got fired. I'm just like, I wish they would have just taken a swing on somebody, or maybe even like if James Borrego won the job, I would have liked that. But indifferent on that. But I will give JB a lot of credit because that Cavs team was not on nothing before he took that job, and they instantly got better. They were instantly a better team when he was the full-time head coach. So hopefully he can have some type of similar impact. I think he's better than what Monty Williams was last year. I think he'll do a much better job than that. And Tobias, they had to spend some money somewhere. And look, that's a good bridge player to not have to rush Ron Holland to play 35 minutes a game his rookie year. Like, give him a little bit of time to develop and everything, lesser role. And Tobias will come in and instantly be like their second best offensive player. So I'm a little more okay with the moves they made this offseason than I was feeling a week ago.
I am not commenting yet. I'm gonna wait to see if they can actually develop anyone.
Oh, for sure. But I'm just upside wise. I like it a little more. Yeah.
But yeah, isolated without it, that's fair. But yeah, I think there's potential. Yeah, I'm not doing anything yet. I got no comments.
Yeah, in a bad draft, why not take a swing on somebody that was at one point the top prospect in this class and everything? I guess. I don't know. It's just Cade. You know, another year they're going to be awful again. Just hopefully it's more of a promising bad team. Like, get some Orlando Magic type growth in Jamal Mosley's second season. Like, be a little more promising like that. But we'll see. Hopefully having a head coach that will hopefully want to be there. Only thing I didn't really like about JB, why are you giving this guy another 5-year contract? Yeah. I'd give him a 2 or 3 year deal. Like, just show us that you're competent, and then we'll talk about bringing you back. But they just love giving out 5-year deals for some reason. Don't get it.
Especially now, it's like, if he gave him less years, what's he going to do? Like, what other head coaching job is he going to take?
Exactly.
Like, there's no comp. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
I didn't.
You might like the Ron Holland thing more, but I'm not a Tobias Harris signing fan. You talk about. I feel like there were points last year where we were like, oh yeah, they need to get off Bojan so that he can kind of step away and they can give more minutes to developing their young guys. And then you bring in Tobias Harris.
I think we were just saying the Bojan thing because teams were clearly like throwing first-round picks to get him, and they just weren't doing it.
Well, still, either way, like,
and they gave him
if you're trying to develop,
and they gave him an extension too. They gave him an extension too, which was like weird. That's why we're kind of bullish on that. But Tobias is a 2-year deal.
You're trying to develop talent.
It's a 2-year deal. You got to spend money somewhere. And look, Ron Holland's probably going to have a rough-ass rookie year if he's playing starting minutes, 32, 34 minutes a game. He's going to have a rough-ass year doing that. And they're going to be fucking terrible. You got to spend the money somewhere. And look, it's a 2-year deal, too. It's not like they gave the man not it's not even like the Fred VanVleet contract. They gave the man 2 years, $26 million a year. They had to spend the money. Nobody's up for an extension that will affect their books next year anyway. So it's like they're fine. I didn't hate that. Like I thought they were going to give that man like $30 million over like 3 years. That's how I thought it was going to be. 2-year deal. That's perfectly fine. Somebody's coming here, average 18 points per game like you always do. We're going to be bad, and that's fine. We're going to still just let our young guys play a good amount of minutes. It's not like Ron Holland's going to be pushed to the back of the bench or anything. He'll still play. Asar's still going to play. One of them have to start. They don't have a log jam.
No, they got a clear 4-man forward rotation and Tobias and then Asar, Ron Holland, and then assuming they re-sign Fontecchio, which I expect they will, then that's probably their 4-man rotation, and that makes sense. So I think even if it's just for the year and then they flip Tobias next offseason, I think that makes sense just to bridge the gap and use Asar and Ron Holland in for another year. I think that makes sense.
I guess I'll see how it goes.
I'm more concerned about the JB thing. Like, I'm trying to be positive about that, but I'm just Gabe, you say it all the time. You like seeing fresh faces at the top of the bench. I would have liked to see that with Detroit. Like, you've tried the former coaches of the year, and look, Dwayne Casey was cool for the second. Monty Williams was not cool at all. He was cool for the first 3 games of the season, then they were fucking terrible after that. Like, I would just much rather see them give a fresh face a chance, or maybe somebody that has not coached in a few years a chance. But I don't know. I hope they get it right, man. JB's not the worst coach in the world. Definitely not the best. It's just kind of in the middle of that spectrum somewhere.
Yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Haven't mind Charlotte's offseason either, too. Like, they haven't done anything crazy, but bringing in Josh Green on the cheap, get second-round picks for bringing Reggie Jackson in. It's kind of nothing crazy, but just making some small moves on the fringes. I've liked what they've done. They've done a good job of bringing in some role players now over the last 6 to 8 months between the trade deadline and Josh Green now. They've actually got some complementary pieces, which, assuming health was what they were missing the most. So, like what they're doing too.
Yeah, and getting a new head coach, I think, is good. That's more on their timeline than what Steve Clifford was. Yeah, I just hope we can see some type of health out of them. I love Mark Williams, love LaMelo Ball. I feel like he's becoming one of the more underrated players in the league just because he misses a decent amount of time. But when he's on the court, especially like beginning of last season when he was healthy, man's looked like he was playing like a top 5 point guard. Like, that's how elite his production was last year. Like, he was that good. So just hopefully they can stay healthy. I didn't mind their draft pick. It was definitely more of a swing pick than taking somebody that's safe, like a Buzelis or I forget who was on the board at the time. But, somebody that seemed a lot more safer. Salon was a swing. But, this is a team that's bought into the full rebuild. Like, they don't have any, like, vets that are taking up spots on their roster, like Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier. Miles Bridges has not re-signed last time I checked. So
no, but probably will. But yeah, still potentially leaves.
Indifferent. Don't care for him off the court, but on the court, he's a solid basketball player. So
yeah, I don't feel overly fazed by their future either way, whether he's there or not. But yeah, I mean, assuming they're healthy, like, it's nice they actually have some pieces now. Like, Grant Williams will have a full year there. Cody Martin was injured for most of last season as well. So he's there. Mičić is there, who looked good in flashes. Trey Mann, similar things. You get the second year of Nick Smith Jr., who looked like he had some really good flashes in his rookie season. So there's actually some complementary pieces there too, which they've kind of been missing. Or if they were there, it was vets like Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward. So
Nick Richards.
Yeah, he's still been really solid unfortunately due to injuries, commonly starting big, but really solid backup big. So there's some pieces there to work with now for sure, where it's not just a couple of stars and a couple of vets. They got some solid young depth now too, which is nice.
I would like Gallo on the Nuggets. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, that makes some sense for sure.
Hayward going to an expansion team. Maybe he should go to the Nuggets. Vet minimum. Sign him up.
be any worse than what they got.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's true.
And it's better, but it can't be worse.
I don't think we talked about it last week, but I love how Sam Presti was so like honest about, he was like, yeah, we got Gordon Hayward, and he just didn't fit. He was like, I messed up. like that's on me. It just didn't work. I'm like, I love the responsibility there, the accountability. Like that's really, really good leadership.
Yeah, but at the same time, that trade did give them the cap space to actually sign Hartenstein, so it wasn't a complete flop.
Yep.
Because otherwise, that they would have still had Davis Bertans on the roster, and he would have picked up his player option, and that's 16 mil or in that ballpark. So a miss still hit for them boys. That's kind of how Presti's been operating.
Yeah, miss.
Hey man, Chris Paul's a champion. The best floor raiser in NBA history.
Hey, I
best,
feel like a lot of the losers really just end up being the teams that didn't do anything. Like looking across the board, like the Lakers were a loser for not doing much. The Nuggets we talked about didn't do anything. The Cavs kept Donovan Mitchell, but I don't think they got any closer to winning the chip with Donovan Mitchell. So I kind of would almost consider them losers, and despite the fact that they kept Mitchell around long term.
Yeah.
Not that they can do much, but yeah, Miami's won. Phoenix, I was going to throw in there too because they lost a ton of guys who were mid in terms of depth and made a couple of signings, but not moved.
Phoenix, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be so until Kevin Durant requests a trade, Devin Booker requests a trade. Honestly, I don't want to talk about them.
So valid.
I'm in that boat. I do not want to talk about them. They do not move me at all, like by the slightest. Monte Morris, fine signing. You got a point guard on your roster. That's cool. But other than that, like, I don't know. I feel like they paid a little more for Royce O'Neal than what he would have gotten in the open market to keep him. I don't know. Not moved. And Bud's their head coach now. Okay. Okay. Marginal improvement.
Not a fan. I call the Kings a loser as well. I think some of their losses, like, even if you're not that high on Davion, like Kessler Edwards is a loss. JaVale's a solid backup. That's a loss.
They got to be making a trade. I feel like I can't trust them yet. Like that Davion trade is like we're getting under the cap. We're opening a roster. Not under the cap, but under the luxury tax. We're opening up a roster spot. Like there's got to be a Kyle Kuzma or something trade in the works. There's just got to be.
Is it possible for them to get Markkanen?
Let's go have a look.
I think Barnes and Herter would be enough money-wise, but they might not have picks to do that.
Yeah, they might not, but we'll definitely take a look here.
Because I'm gonna be honest, the Jazz, they're getting to that, like, they're not losers, but it's like, what are you doing? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, and this is Markkanen's same last year. I didn't think it was already his last year, but it might be.
He signed a 3-year deal, I thought, when he went to Cleveland. So this would no.
Yeah, this is his last year. He will be unrestricted next summer.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean they gotta either pay him or move him.
They have to,
They have to.
And he would get, if Mikal Bridges got you 4, you're probably getting 3 for Markkanen at least. At the very least 3. Maybe a good player.
Yeah.
So, like, come on now.
So that was the 2024 pick. So that means the 2025 pick of Sacramento is going to be carrying over to Atlanta in the Kevin Huerter trade. So they could move a 2027, a 2029, and a 2031. So they could move 3 first-round picks. So that should work. Yeah, Lauri Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson for Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, and a 27, 29, and 31 first-round pick.
That's I don't hate it. It's a big front court. Keegan will slide down to the 3. I don't hate it.
Maybe second throw in like Keon Ellis to sweeten the deal or something like that. But
yeah, I don't know. They'll probably get better trade packages. That's the only thing that's down on there. So
yeah.
maybe it is a Kuzma. Sorry, was there noise in my background? My bad.
I was trying to say it was me, like I wasn't muted, bro. Hop off.
Maybe a Kuzma. Levine does not move me.
No.
Just because his contract is fucking ginormous, bro.
Yeah, I don't think that really makes sense for them.
It is usually Gabe's chair. Sorry. That's on me. I'll try not to move too much. I got a twisty chair, so I'll just start moving.
It wasn't your chair. I think it was like somebody moving in the background. I heard like the door like open and close.
That's probably what it was then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to call the Kings losers. We'll have to see.
If they don't have a trade-in store, then it definitely is. It's a loss.
Yeah, I can see that.
We got to see what happens with Kuz, with Ingram, with DeMar, Levine, Vooch.
All the guys that have little to no value. Yeah.
Julius Randle could still go somewhere.
Possible for sure.
Did we talk? We might have said this before the podcast, but Wizards, good offseason.
Yep.
Getting the best player in the draft, despite not being number one and not having to trade up.
Yeah. Bob Carrington's a great pick too.
Love that pick more than I did on draft night. You know, and they have more flexibility, like trading Brogdon, Kuzma potentially, Valanciunas down the line, maybe year 2 of the deal potentially. Like,
10 million a year, dude, that's a good value contract. Like, if a team just isn't a pinch, somebody goes down, they need a starting center, get a first round pick out of that.
And they gave Holmes money just to hit their cap floor, and none of it's guaranteed, essentially. Like, which is weird, but yeah, solid offseason for them. I think Portland, just based off the draft, I like what they did in getting Danny on draft night.
Yeah,
like those are 2 teams that had no direction like a year ago, and now we're saying good offseason. Gotta love it.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that Anthony to the Magic trade too, Garrett. I'm hoping, man. They're obviously a much younger team, so I'm not like ringing the alarm bell like I am with the Pels, but they're where the Pels were like a few years ago now. It's like, okay, we've had our playoff success, and we have like 13 to 14 guys who probably should be in our rotation, and we need to make them decisions. The issue for them being is they do have it's not like 10 or 11. They probably legitimately have 13 to 14 guys who should be in an NBA rotation. So even still, they do need to make some decisions. But again, we're July 2nd, so I don't expect that their summer is done yet. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a star trade or an Anthony Simons type guy. Maybe they just move off of Wendell for some picks or something like that, but there's definitely something else brewing there. There's no way they go in with that many rotational guys.
Are the Bucks just relying on Dame getting back to Portland form and Giannis being healthy?
Yeah. I mean, that's all they can rely on. So that's all they got. I mean, they don't even have Malik Beasley back this year. Might be losing Jay Crowder too. So, I mean, they're kind of similar to Denver for me, and probably just on an even lower front. I'm not that confident.
Sucks for them.
I don't even. Yeah, they're at best the 4th best team in the conference right now, and that's with me. That's with me. That's with me still thinking that Giannis is like in contention for the best player in the NBA.
He keeps getting better. He keeps getting better too, which is crazy.
Even then, regardless of what you think between a Giannis and Jokic, doesn't matter. Either way, the Knicks are a better roster. Like, Giannis would be the best player in that series. Dame might be the third best player in that series. Brunson's definitely better right now, but he might be probably the third best player. Regardless, the Knicks are a way better roster. The fluidity from the first man to the last man of the rotation, just the way they can play on both sides of the ball, is a better team. I also think Philly's a better team right now because whereas like Milwaukee's top heavy and their depth is just bad. And even some of their core guys like Chris Middleton still gives me some question marks. Brooke Lopez is kind of declining a little bit. Not really sure what his long-term status is there. Philly at least has like their top three guys. But then the depth around them is like decent.
Solid.
Like it's like when we said like we said last year, okay, Phoenix signed all these guys, so they have like some depth, but all their depth guys are mid. Like, no, I think Philly has some guys that are supplementary pieces that are like actually some quality rotation pieces. It's just not as deep as you'd optimally want for a title run.
We didn't even mention Drummond earlier. I don't think anybody mentioned.
We did. I think Devin brought him up.
I forgot. I forgot about it. So
no, but like Drummond, Kelly Oubre, Buddy Hield's still on the roster. Like they got guys.
Buddy Hield is? I thought he's free agent.
Yeah. Is he gone?
I saw a list.
Buddy hasn't signed yet, I don't think.
Yeah. I saw a list that he's still out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
he was
get a big contract if he comes back.
He was trash. He was trash for them. So maybe.
Small sample size.
Yeah,
Maybe he bets on himself, but I don't know.
He doesn't scream Nick Nurse player to me.
But even still, like, you know, draft pick McCain, like he should be like they got guys, right? So I think they're a better team than Milwaukee is right now, and so that leaves them at best four. Now then we see the Magic are on the come up. They're ascending. Indiana made the conference finals last year. I don't think they were the second best team in the conference.
Would you take them in a series healthy against the Bucks?
No, I wouldn't. And it's crazy that they won 2 series.
Yeah, they did.
But like even if they come back next year and they're completely mediocre, the Bucks are a better team.
I don't know. Maybe Giannis is good enough to win that series though, but
okay, yeah, like I could see where like you get through a regular season, the Pacers win more games.
Indiana's objectively a better team, a better roster.
A lot of times, it is a better roster, but like in a 7-game series, the top end talent of Milwaukee being that much better.
Yeah, it might.
When you cut the rotation down,
it might matter. Indiana doesn't do that; they'll play 11 guys. But I think in that series it might matter because I think Giannis is that much better than Tyrese Halliburton or Pascal Siakam, whoever you consider to be Pacers' best guy. In other series, though, like they'll probably walk into every series out east and have the best player. I don't think that matters as much as it used to because a lot of the top teams have really good depth. Like they might walk into a series against Boston. Giannis is the best player in that series. But you look at player 2, Tatum, player 3, Brown, or whoever you want to say is better. I don't care. And then even after that, it's like maybe it's Dame, but then it's Drew Holiday, then it's Derek White, then it's Porzingis, and then maybe you get to Chris Middleton, maybe you get to Brooklyn. I don't know. Like and that's like almost every series against the top teams out east. Like you walk in against the Knicks. Mm-hmm. And that gap's not even that big between, I think, Brunson as a playoff performer. Like, we've seen him go to extreme levels, which makes him look like a top 10 player in the world. So, you know, it's rough for them. Their depth was already bad last year. It's probably worse now, objectively. Like, they're losing a lot of guys that they were relying on.
Yep.
And Doc Rivers is still their head coach. I can't look past that. He's still their head coach.
I can't get into like you put the Bucks in a 7-game series against the New York Knicks, and you're going like for the 2 primary defenders on Giannis is Mikal Bridges and OG. That makes me think that Knicks are going to do a pretty good job with him. Now, it's not like as far as wing defenders to put on him, because usually they say like the best type of guy to put on him is like a Bam type guy. But
Not
as far
every
as
team has it.
Yeah, and they don't have
but like a wing defender to put.
I think
on
OG's
guards,
is
they got some of
OG's
the
as good as you
best.
can get, honestly. Like
Yeah,
big
Yeah.
body that can move. Yeah, they're fucked. And the AJ Johnson pick, everybody was like, really? You could have got him. If you liked him that much, you could have got him with your pick in the second round.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very odd pick for a team that needs someone to help them yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
So
weird.
out of all the teams out east that want to be good, the only team competing with them for a worse offseason is the Miami Heat. That's the only team that's competing.
And that's nothing new for Miami.
Yeah. Pat Riley's been asleep for like 4 years. Like, that's nothing strange.
might be all the interesting teams up to now. We talked about most of everybody.
I think we did talk about everybody. We briefly talked about the Timberwolves.
Yep.
I don't think we mentioned the Rockets at all.
They didn't really do too much. Right?
Yeah, like they didn't do much. Like we didn't talk about Boston. Like we didn't talk about Boston's offseason. We just kind of compared other teams to them.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about Brooklyn at all. I just think they're kind of heading towards a fire sale. I'm happy they got picks.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see what else they do. 'Cause
Yeah.
glad they moved off of McHale, but they still got to move off of Cam, and they still got to move off of Dorian. I don't hate Claxton coming back, assuming they get value for him, I guess. But I don't let him walk for nothing. So
Yeah.
I'm not against that.
That's a good
Yeah.
contract, too. I didn't hate that
Yeah,
deal.
that is a good contract.
We didn't talk about Golden State.
Trash.
They've actually made good moves. It's just that doesn't matter anymore now. But
Yeah.
Hilton's a good signing if he's healthy. Kyle Anderson's a good signing, but like they're just going to be in the play-in regardless. So
You think that, but I don't know. It's something about that Warriors system where just a lot of guys just don't fit in. That's
yeah,
the other like concerning part.
that's fair.
Yeah, hopefully Moses Moody finally gets playing time.
I mean, if he ain't going to get it now, I mean,
You know what? No. Let's pod now. Let's talk about the Warriors, man. I love talking. I love E3ing these guys so much because look, I don't know if they got Paul George that moves the needle that much for them, but it's objectively better than losing Klay Thompson for basically nothing. You got a 2030 like second round pick or whatever. I saw conflicting reports, but the last one that I saw today was that they did not want to include Jonathan Kuminga in the Paul George trade. So I don't get these guys. Like 1 minute you guys think so highly of Kuminga, like, oh no, we don't want to trade this guy. But then he has to fucking cut his hair and beg for a trade after, getting like DNPs and stuff for him to finally get minutes. Like, I don't understand the philosophy behind this team. A lot of times, like over the last 4 years, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. Like all of a sudden, like, oh, Kuminga's this. We don't want to lose him. But just 6 months ago, you guys were like benching him DNPs. Moses Moody, when he plays, is solid. Doesn't get consistent minutes. I just don't get this team. And you're going to waste – Steph Curry's still playing all-NBA basketball, and you're going to waste these last few years that he has of great basketball. And look, Bob Myers might be the smartest fucking man in the world because he didn't want to make these decisions. He got up out of there a couple years before they had to start making these decisions. And Mike Dunleavy looks like he's behind the wheel, but the lights ain't on. Like he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. This team is just they've wasted a few good years of Steph Curry, and they're gonna waste a lot more good years of Steph Curry. And it's tough to see, sad to see for Steph, but yeah, the Warriors front office they're pretty stinky these days. That's all I'm gonna say. I just don't get the whole Kuminga stuff, like all of a sudden this man's just the most valuable asset to you in the world when you were just benching him for like nobody that was fucking better than him last year. Like I just don't get these guys.
I'm ready for Curry's next chapter.
He's not going to request out.
Yeah, I know. They're going to be there. Like they're going to ride Curry into the sunset, and then once he's gone, they're going to go right back to what they were before he got there.
Making the playoffs one time in 14 years. I like they've been good for so long. Like it's funny to see them like fall off, I guess, because they were running the league. They got fucking KD when they were already a great team. Like maybe this is karma. Maybe that's what it is. But at the same time, it's like you still have a arguably top 5 player in the world. Like Steph's still one of the guys, one of those top guys. And your best move is the Anthony Melton. Like I don't know. Do you just not believe in Steph that much that you don't want to throw Kuminga into that trade? I don't know. I don't know. If I was a Warriors fan, I would definitely be very frustrated because there's Steph's still that good to where we can see him like swing a team to make them good. He just needs pieces around them, and you lose Clay for nothing. You mismanage a bunch of draft picks, and you don't develop guys well enough. It's just a lot of confusion. Like people forget the James Wiseman stuff. Like that was the number 2 pick. You know, they had a couple first round picks. Like they took like Patrick Baldwin Jr. and then they took Ryan Rollins early in the second round. Like had a lot of high draft picks, first round picks that they haven't done shit with. Pods was a good one. Kuminga, it took time because they didn't want to play the guy, but ended up being solid. But I don't know. They had the chance to really extend. I think they're like true dynasty. Good that they got another championship out of that, but I don't know. That might have just been like them catching fucking lightning in a bottle because the way this front office has been ran since KD left has not been great at all.
Yeah,
Good rant.
Thanks.
it's tough. I don't know how harsh I want to be on them for how they've dealt with not bringing in Paul George. Because realistically, they bring in Paul George, they're probably still a playing team next year. Right? I don't think it changes that much. Now, criticisms of what they've done over the last few years, how they've managed their draft picks, how they've managed playing time with some of their young guys, I'm right there with you. I think the only saving grace move they could have is maybe they bring in a Lauri Markkanen. And that's about all they got left at this point. Other than that, they're kind of just are what they are at this point. I don't think there's a lot of avenues for them to really make that competitive roster again. So
I'll be honest.
They might just have to ride it out. It sucks, but like it might just be where they're at, regardless of whether you want Curry or not.
Real quick, Gabe, before you go, I'll be honest. A good avenue would be maybe not this offseason because there's probably not teams that could trade for him. But I would, if I was in that front office, I would trade Steph Curry at some point because, like you said, there's not really much room for them to improve. But it's like we saw how bad the Lakers were, and they held on to Kobe because they're like, you know what, man, you're our guy. Like you're one of our franchise's best players. We love you, Kobe. We're gonna keep you until you decide to call it quits, even though you're not good anymore. All the teams that decide not to do that end up bitter because it. The Miami Heat were like, D-Wade, we're not fucking paying you. You're not worth a max contract at 34 for 35 years old. You have bad knees. We're not paying you. So he left, and the Heat objectively got better because of that over time. They got Bam Adebayo in the draft. Like they got better because of that. The Celtics, Danny Ainge is like, you know what, Paul Pierce, KG, we love you guys. Jersey going up in the Raptors some days. We're trading you. We're getting a lot of first round picks. We're trading you guys. Like teams that end up doing that, they're good because of it. Eventually, it's tough. It's tough to do. Like you have to have a lot of guts to make that decision, and that's why we see like guys like Dirk end up staying in one jersey for a long time. Guys like Kobe do that because those guys in the front office are like, we love you too much. We're not going to trade you. So maybe if Dunleavy has any guts, Bob Myers left you this sinking ship. I would say, you know what? I'm trying to keep this job for a long time. So I'm going to have to make the tough decision, and we might have to trade Steph Curry at some point.
Yeah.
Even if it's against his wishes.
Yeah. 100% the move to make, but yeah, it's going to take a lot of guts to do it.
Definitely more Kobe Lakers than Dirk Mavericks. I feel like the Mavericks did a good enough job those last couple of years with Dirk. They didn't need to trade him. I mean, it took them a little bit to get there, but they're just fine now. They got their future cornerstone in Luka while Dirk was still on the team. Played one season together. Dirk retired, and they continued on to the future and were able to, by like year 4, they made the conference finals for the first time. So it's like there was a lot of asset management that went against the Warriors. James Wiseman could have got you a lot at a certain point in time. Like looking at where he's at now, nothing really. But if you would have traded him like in trade deadline 23 or even the offseason after you got the championship, you probably could have got a lot more out of it. Like, I think there was some real potential there. Even if you traded him before the 2022 championship, like, he never really became that big part of the rotation, and I think a lot of teams still have some really interesting offers for him. Jordan Poole probably could have got you more, but the toxic situation with him and Draymond kind of lowered his value. Like Reek was talking about the Kuminga thing, his asset management has been really strange. Now he's still there, but Moses Moody could have got you something solid. Like, he was in a lot of those packages. They wouldn't trade him, but they also barely play him. They had the Steph timeline, and then they had the young core, and they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They got a ring out of it, so they thought they could keep getting away with it. And they didn't. I mean, both sets of players lost their value. The young guys weren't what they were made out to be, which is hard to be what you're made out to be when you're meant to continue a dynasty. Like, it's not every day you're the Spurs aging and a Kawhi Leonard comes along. You just continue on. So they should have maximized their value when they could. Now, when you win a championship in 2022 and you're like, well, we just won a championship with this team, let's run it back. Understandable. I get it. But hindsight being 2020, it was avoidable. You say trading Steph's probably the best option, and it might be, but there was a lot that happened along the way that I think forced them to that.
Yeah, Jordan Poole trade looks weird in hindsight too.
Yeah.
1 year Chris Paul and you lose him for nothing. You waive him actually, yeah. Yeah, asset management is like the best way to say it, Gabe. It was poor over the last few years. But they got a championship, I guess. Maybe they're just okay with that at this point. But I don't know. If they want to set themselves up better in the future, moving off of Steph would not be the worst idea in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah. I was just looking at a few mock trades for him. Man, not that the guys with his salary get traded that often, but trading the guy with his salary is becoming very interesting considering most teams won't be able to, well, I shouldn't say most, but quite a few teams won't be able to add multiple players in the package to combine salaries. And of course, the Warriors wouldn't be able to either, currently at least. So, like, I got Darius Garland, Karis LeVert in a first. And the only other one that I was able to manage that somewhat made sense, although the value does not match at all, is Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier in a first. So it's not great. It's not great.
Yeah.
There's a silver lining to it, though. It's like they got 4 championships out of Steph Curry.
Yeah.
There's only 5 teams. Like, there's 30 teams in the NBA. Only 5 teams even have 4 championships. And they got that in one man.
Turn them into an $8 billion franchise.
All things considered, the only other teams with that many titles, the Celtics, who won most of those literally before any of us were even born.
Stop with just one. You see the shirt.
Hey. Hopefully they get some more, but so far they're up to 2 this morning. The Lakers, this is a little bit more spread out. I'll give them that. The Bulls, which was all in one decade, and the Spurs, who was all in one dynasty. So, like, it's really not that many teams that have had a dynasty ever. They're, like, one of the, like, 5. Maybe there's a 6th one out there. They got, like, 3 that we could throw in there, too. But all things considered, like, it was a good-ass run. So, if they're bad for the next, like, if basically they end up, like, it's in chat, like, what the Bulls were after NJ, the Bulls still really have not recovered. Like, they had, like, the D Rose days where they were on top for a while again. Not to the same peak, but if they don't get a chip for a while, historically speaking, they still are literally one of the better franchises in history now because of the Steph era. So everything has to end eventually. but like getting 4 was damn good.
That's true. I'll still trade him, but
He deserves it, man. Let him ride it out.
if anybody is deserving, it's definitely staying.
If he wants to stay, like he was the dynasty.
Look, if Bob Myers was still in the seat, I'd be like, I'd understand that. But it's a new guy in the seat. If I'm done leaving, I'm thinking about, look, I'm trying to build the next great Warriors team. So we might have to do.
They'll be last in attendance. They'll be last in attendance immediately.
That's fine.
They're not building a great nothing.
So the Warriors will just never be good again. Is that what you're saying?
It'll be at least 10 years.
Oh, 10 years.
Yes.
Clip that, Chad.
Clip it. Now, and like if they have a season where they're randomly a 3 seed, then
they got Kuminga. See how they feel about him.
Like when I say they won't be a serious contender. If they have an Indiana Pacers run,
that's fair.
Or like an Atlanta Hawks run, that does not count. Like I'm saying, they will not be a real contender for at least a decade.
Okay, that's more fair. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's very fair, especially considering all due respect to Kuminga, he's not leading them to any amazing places. So, especially in the current landscape of the West. If they trade Curry tomorrow and Kuminga's the main guy,
15 seed.
You're down there with the bottom 3 boys down there, and you might not be at the top of it. You might be below the Spurs. You might be below the Jazz. Portland. I'll let you guys fight that out.
Kuminga,
a team led by Wemby is definitely better.
Kuminga and AirPods is a terrible too.
Yeah, give me Wemby and CP0.
What number is Keldon Johnson giving up his 3?
Not sure. I haven't heard anything about that.
He has to, right?
Yeah, is Keldon Johnson even on that team by the time the season starts? Let's be honest.
Honestly,
I don't know, man. I feel like his days are numbered there. Yes, it feels like the odd man out.
God, the Clippers are just going all fucking in, ain't they?
They make another move?
No, LA Times reporter said the Clippers have interest in Miles Bridges.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw that before. Yeah, I saw Miles Bridges had interest in them because they gave Kevin Porter Jr. another chance.
And Josh Primo another chance.
Yeah, them boys are getting a terrible rep. Cannot support them dudes over there.
Jailblazers.
I don't think Kai Jones deserved to be treated the way he was, but they gave him a chance to. So that's just, I guess, what they are. Yeah, I'm so glad you didn't even put the KPJ thing on the dock.
Yeah, I honestly have not considered that signing whatsoever for them. It's just, yeah.
What pissed me off about it, it was like one of the first signings in the first 30, 45 minutes. Like, it was one of the earliest signings. 2-year deal with a player option.
No way that guy should have that much leverage. I mean, he shouldn't have any leverage, but
you could have signed him in August. He would have been out there. I guarantee it.
I don't know if I can guarantee that. I'd like to guarantee it.
Well, I've never been that high on KPJ as a basketball player. That's just me personally. I've never been that high on him.
I haven't either.
Even before the allegation, I'm not that high on him as a basketball player.
Cleveland KPJ. Whew.
Brother got a 23-year-old player got a majority non-guaranteed contract. Like, I'm not. Houston knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the Clippers do that, I'm adding them to the Suns list too. I'm not talking about y'all.
Yeah, I feel that.
Kawhi just don't talk, period.
Treat him like that too. That's the point I'm getting to, man. Like, even the teams that might win 47 games, I'm not talking about you.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing to say. Suns, Clippers, Lakers. We never talk about the Lakers, though, anyways.
Yeah.
Looking at this tweet, the Clippers have interest in signing Miles Bridges. He responded to the picture, said, This pic looks like I'm farting. Can we use a different one? And somebody quote me with his mugshot.
That's how I saw the report.
I was crying, bro.
Because I have Legion Hoops muted on my main Twitter, so definitely.
Did the Lakers get anybody?
Bronny
Yeah.
James.
They got Bronny.
Connect though.
I wish
Connect
they would've got the
4.
Raptors.
Connect 4 is objectively a top 5 nickname in basketball.
Very, very good. Very good. The only thing the Lakers are getting is nonstop unwarranted coverage on First Take, and that's about it.
Look at a couple minimum contract guys to sign deals.
Did they?
They
No.
will.
Oh.
It'll happen.
Yeah, they haven't signed it. Yeah, that's actually crazy.
No, it'll be guys who haven't been. It'll be guys who like aren't signed. Who, like,
Gary Trent.
5.
Gary Trent's a Laker. If I was a betting man, Gary Trent's gonna be a Laker.
Yeah, he could go on a Malik Monk 1 year.
Yep.
Bet on himself type deal for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
I remember when he was valuable, young upstart in Portland.
Yeah. Talks for last year was going to opt out and demand 20+ mil on the open market. Those were the days.
Would have been a terrible deal, man. It would have been an Evan Fournier type deal.
They gave Max Christie the Zignagi deal. He haven't shown us
deal,
anything. He ain't shown us shit, but I think it's the Payton Pritchard deal too. I think he got same.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
money.
Seems to be the standard. You haven't played much for us yet, but we need you to do something now.
Yep. Or we're trading.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Apparently, I forget which trade I saw. I don't know how true the report was, but somebody was available via trade, and they didn't want to give up Cam Reddish. I hope that wasn't true. Really hope that wasn't true.
Right. He has like who's that? Kyle Korver got traded for the printer. That's Cam Reddish's value.
Cam Reddish is gonna be 28, being like he still has to have something in the tank, right? Like there's something there. Team's gonna keep giving him contracts. Oh, I gotta find this report, bro. Gosh, where's this report? I cannot find it. Oh, here it is. Sham said Utah offered Colin Sexton and Walker Kessler in a package, but the Lakers rejected it because the Jazz wanted Cam Reddish in the deal.
That is not a player you were declining a trade for. There's just no shot.
I'll trade Cam Reddish for a printer. Like Gabe said, printer. Cannot end the podcast today though. Before Kemba Walker retired today.
He did. Charlotte Hornets legend.
Franchise's best scorer. I made a tweet earlier, man. That 2019-2020 season, that was the last great version of Kemba Walker we saw, and I'm glad it was in a Celtics uniform because he was still really good. First Celtics game I ever went to, he scored 44 points. We lost to Indiana, to Malcolm Brogdon's Indiana team, but he had 44 points. So Kemba always has a special place in my heart. Legendary college basketball player. Really good NBA career. Sucks to see him retired at such a, I guess, a youngish age, but it's sad because his knees just gave out after like that first year in Boston. But he still had a hell of a career, in my opinion, man.
Very good career.
His jersey will be retired easily.
They should.
Has to be. The way the boys are going, it might not be. Might be a while till someone breaks his point record, unless LaMelo's there for a minute. So, yeah, definitely deserved. Considering the next best guy on that list is Del Curry. So, no Curry hate, but Kemba Walker's another step up on that.
For sure, man. Shout out to Kemba. Getting old, man. I remember watching him in college.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Like Paul George is going to be 38 at the end of his Philly deal.
Yeah.
Steph's about to be 37. Steph's old. KD's about to be 36, 37.
Reek's about to be 45.
Yeah, Gabe's just turned 20.
I'll be able to drink someday.
Someday. Gosh. Gabe, you know who Sebastian Telfair is?
He was afraid to guard LeBron in 2002.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if I was being trolled or not by that page, but I don't know. They might.
I've heard. I'll be completely honest. I'm young enough so where you said the name Sebastian Telfair, I'm like, I recognize that name. But if you would have showed me that picture, I would not have been like, oh, Sebastian Telfair.
That's fair.
Very fair.
He was a Raptor. He was also a Celtic. That's crazy.
Yeah, he was a Raptor.
He played
How
for like
long
10
he
teams.
was.
10 teams in like 10 years. Damn.
Morey is a
Yeah,
liar.
he played
You cannot
13 games
trust
for the
him.
Raptors.
I did not know that. That's a crazy.
Absolute
Cool.
legend.
If you didn't know him, Gabe, I wouldn't be surprised because he retired before we started watching basketball.
Young man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really even have any memories of him playing in the NBA. I just know him from like him being a high school legend, honestly.
Yeah, I don't have many. I don't really have any memories of him in the league either. I just remember him on the end of a Raptors team, and then remember him at the end of the OKC team in his last year. But other than his days in mini, that's about it.
You don't remember James Harden cutting this promo?
No.
Daryl Morey is a liar. You
Remember
cannot trust him.
Remember
He
he's in
promised
China
me a
last
max
year.
contract
Right.
and went back on his word. You
He was in
cannot
China
trust
last
this man
year.
or do business with him because he will screw you over. Do not trust him. We used to be bros, but he stabbed me in the back. I hate him and will never be part of an organization with him ever again. You cannot do business with Daryl Morey. Trust me, you do not want to go to Philly if Daryl Morey is there. If Paul George won the next season.
That was the funniest morning ever because I could have swore that video was artificial intelligence. Like absolutely.
It looked like it could have been a deep fake too. It was so unconvincing.
He really cut a promo in China at like 7 a.m. American Eastern Time.
Dude, I just can't believe like he went, him and Paul George became teammates. And Paul George said, I think the money that you were gonna get from Daryl Morey, I'm gonna get from Daryl Morey.
Well, the money they didn't want to pay you here in LA, I'm getting paid here.
Personally, if I'm James Harden, I'm not picking up that man's phone calls.
Hey, when Eric Gordon signed with the Sixers, somebody was on Twitter like, they were like, Daryl Morey only knows like 10 guys in the NBA.
Man's about to bring Trevor Ariza out of retirement.
Oh, they're getting Clint. If the Hawks get off Clint.
Well, they already have PJ Tucker in Philly.
Chris Paul hasn't been there yet.
Ryan Anderson, what are you doing? You free?
Has Pat Bev has been to Philly, right?
Yeah. No, wait. No. Wait.
Has he
Yeah,
not?
He was just there.
This season. Yeah.
Yeah.
For Milwaukee. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Daryl Morey and Leo's king guys.
They're about to sign like Kenneth Fareed.
The manimal.
Daniel House has made it. He's been in Philly at some point.
Yep. Yeah, he was there last year.
Gosh.
Just the Rockets again.
He might only know like 15 people for it.
Some teams are just a pipeline, man. I don't know.
Brings in the same dudes. Yeah, their roster's looking a lot different this next season, which is interesting. Because they only had like 3 guys under contract going into off season.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Nice. They need some change.
yeah.
Raptors become Clippers. Rockets become Sixers.
Rockets become Sixers. I'm trying to think. Norm Powell, Kawhi. Is that it?
Bulls become Timberwolves. I feel like there was one or two other guys. I'm trying to think.
I don't know if there was or if it was just dudes they were trying to get. No.
I can't think of like those Raptor teams, man. CJ Miles was never.
I remember Roger was Surge there for a little bit.
Oh
Yeah, Surge went.
Forgot about
Surge
that.
went.
Yeah.
He was just doing shit after Toronto. Like he was just
He was.
Milwaukee,
Yeah.
Clippers.
Marc Gasol went to LA, but the other team.
Yep. Some random Clippers like Lou Will. That counts. He was a Raptor.
Yeah.
Forgot he was a Raptor. He was a Raptor for a second.
And picked up a 6th man of the year and then dipped, but
Still Isaiah Thomas's award, but yeah.
Patrick Patterson.
Oh God.
Yep. Patrick B.
The last shot I saw him hit was like 12 years ago. I did not see him hit a shot in OKC one time.
PJ Tucker was a Raptor. PJ's been everywhere.
Yep.
Name a team he hasn't been on. That's the better game.
True. He has not been a Magic. Say that much.
Has he been a Timberwolf?
Nah.
No.
I'm gonna go.
It's not as crazy as some other guys, actually. I mean, he's been around, but
I don't know where he started, but the first team I remember him on when he got back was Phoenix.
yeah, he started in Toronto.
Oh, he started in Toronto?
Yeah, he started in Toronto, and then he went to Phoenix, and then went back to Toronto.
Then it was Houston.
Yep.
Milwaukee.
Yep.
Sixers.
He was in Miami for a year.
He was in my damn. I should remember that. He was, yep. They should. I don't know why they let him go, but they did. He went to Philly. And
Pat Riley was asleep.
Yeah. I think the last free agency move Pat Riley made was signing Kyle Lowry. That was the last one I remember.
It's Kyle Lowry's. I wonder he'll get it at minimum.
He's a Nick, man. You got to complete the Nova. Even though he's not one of the boys from that team.
I was gonna say he was on Nova like 10, 12 years before those guys.
What's Jeremiah Robinson Earl doing in New Orleans? He's not getting playing time. Let's ship him to New York. They need a backup center. Eric Pascal, man, are you in shape now? Come on.
Imagine. That's how we can gauge this this trade for Julius Randle, who's from Villanova. Colin Gillespie.
He's in Denver.
Ryan Arcidiacono.
Gillespie, he signed for someone. I'm trying to remember who he signed for now. What am I, Phoenix?
Cam Whitmore.
Sadiq Bey.
Yeah, it was Phoenix.
Sadiq Bey's a free agent.
Yep.
Omari Spellman's not in the league. Pascal's not in the league.
Paul Arizin.
I have no idea what that is. Yeah.
1950s player from Villanova.
Shit. What's Scotty Reynolds doing? He never even played in the NBA. What's Scotty Reynolds doing? He's probably not playing basketball anymore. Yeah, Kyle Lowry has to be the next guy.
Gotta be.
And then sign and trade Julius Randle to Atlanta against Sadiq Bey. Or sign and trade Sadiq Bey, trade him. Yeah, you guys know what I was trying to say.
Yeah. To be honest, you can probably get Sadiq Bey on the vet minimum right now, which is
probably
sad considering where it was a year ago, but he just needs to get healthy and prove himself for a year, hopefully.
Oh, I forgot he was in Atlanta, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. I haven't played since about January, to be fair, so it's been a minute.
They were playing my dude, Craigie.
Yep. It was decent, to be fair.
He actually was. He had a couple games against the Celtics that I remember.
Another OKC find.
He was an OKC. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was his first year. It's OKC. He only played like once they were tanking in the 21-22 season, but
Interesting.
I feel like I saw a few Cone tweets talking about Krejci late in the season.
Fit. Yeah. What are you laughing at, Gabe?
Somebody, there's this meme going around. It's like some like old ass Trump tweet that's ISIS has a new leader. We know exactly who he is, and so people are like this one is Pat Riley.
That is crazy.
Like I'm sure there'll be one, and it's Palinka.
I can't believe they have not, like, the Lakers really have not signed anybody. That is funny.
They ain't
They
signed
signed Bronny.
They ain't
Bronny
bring
doesn't
back
get
Tony
minutes.
Prince.
That's crazy.
Bronny's getting regular minutes. They need to figure something else out. No disrespect to Bronny, but like probably should get at least a year of G League time, considering you barely had a league of college time. Like
Bronny wears number 9 because of Juice World.
Yeah, apparently. I don't think he gets minutes this season. He shouldn't. Like you
he
said.
shouldn't. It doesn't mean
You
he
don't
won't.
think, you don't think Bronny gets minutes? He's
I
throwing a lot.
I
He's
think
throwing
he
a lot
gets
to his
some
dad.
minutes just because media, but I don't think it's regular rotational minutes.
I'm happy for Bronny, but the Lakers continue to be the circus of the NBA.
Yeah.
It's going to be a cold day in hell when LeBron retires or leaves. Probably retired at this point, but it'll be a cold day in LA.
Yeah, he's like Jordan Belfort right now. Leaving.
What if he just leaves? Like, you guys gave Bronny guarantee. All right, I'm out.
He won't though.
I'm out.
He's never leaving LA.
I'm out. I'm going to play with Steph on the minimum. It's like a real pay cut.
Dude, if I was LeBron, I'd go right down or something. Just I had no help my whole career. Let me just
Sign with Boston. Fuck it. LeBron to the Pistons. They still got like $26 million to offer, maybe.
Yeah, Pistons got 30. Pistons got 33.6, and Utah got 39.7. They only teach with actual room, but they got it.
I don't know. I can see LeBron in a Heat jersey.
Oh, really?
Dude, get the jersey swaps ready.
Oh my gosh. I think I can make one right now.
Bet.
On stream. The Jimmy Butler rumors died down too. I wanted to see him get traded. That's probably dead now.
Yeah.
Riley's not. You can't make a trade if your GM's asleep.
Do we just think Pat like sleeps like 16 hours a day or something like that?
Bro, he's sleeping or practicing dark magic, one or the other.
Hey, that was my thing about Derrick Jones Jr. This man didn't even shoot good with the Heat voodoo going on. He wasn't even shooting good in Miami. That's 1 year in Dallas was a fluke of a shooting year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not that convinced.
Yeah, you were saying it like at the trade deadline. You're like, Derrick Jones Jr. is he going to keep shooting in the playoffs? Maybe, probably not.
If he gets them, the team's going to care. Probably not.
Yeah, I remember my dad texted me like during the OKC series. He still calls him airplane mode. I don't know why, but I haven't heard anybody call him that in like 5 years. He was like, I did not know airplane mode could shoot like this. I'm like, gosh, I didn't know either. Him and fucking PJ in that series look like Steph and Clay.
Yeah.
Just
they
wasn't
did.
missing.
For real. I feel like at least PJ can do it enough that teams will somewhat respect it, but I don't know if Derek Jones is ever going to get there. I say that, and PJ's numbers have been not great the last 2 years either, but he shoots enough of them at least. He's always been a respected shooter, whereas Derek is just not that.
Yeah. I hope he keeps it up, though. I'm not rooting for the guy to all of a sudden become a bad shooter to fit my agendas. I like Derek Jones Jr.
Sure.
Players undefeated.
Gosh. Oh, bro. Anyways, did y'all see the new NCAA trailer that came out today?
Yes, I did.
I'm so hyped.
Yeah, no, I'm so looking forward to that.
Geeked up, man. Gabe, are you copying?
Maybe. I might have to see the reviews first. I don't know, man. These EA football games, like,
it would have to be like just unplayable for me to not be happy, I think.
Yeah.
Like it would just have to be like really 2K-ish, like just not fun. Which I don't think it'll be that. At least the rollout's been really good, like more convincing than any Madden game that I can remember.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it doesn't, and everything they've talked about and shown, it doesn't feel like a rushed product, which is encouraging to see, which is usually the opposite of what EA will do. So,
I mean, they pushed it back a year, if I'm not mistaken. Like it was supposed to come out last summer, and they pushed it back. So, if they was really money hungry, they could have just dropped a worse product last year if they really wanted to, which would be a typical EA type of thing, like we're saying. But I'm excited, man. Dynasty looks elite.
Yep.
Gameplay looks solid. Only gripe I have is you don't start in high school and Road to Glory. That's the only small issue. But I'm like, you know what? High school got kind of boring after a while, so maybe it's not that bad.
No, looking forward to it. Good.
recruiting players to my college team that run music accounts.
I saw that earlier. Like, yeah, I'm pulling that offer as soon as I see that. The best part, though, I don't remember the last time like me and all of the homies like are talking about playing a game together.
Yeah.
Like I haven't really played any games with the homies since I got my P5 at all, because everybody just be playing different stuff. But nah, this is actually getting everybody back together to like game a little bit, and that's exciting because I haven't had that since like 2020, to be honest.
I've been back in a little lately. Like I've been running some multiplayer, X Defiant, Valorant. I re-downloaded Fortnite, man. I haven't had time yet.
I don't think I've
free to play games scary.
I don't think I've played Fortnite since whenever I would have last played with you, Garrett, and Jelson. It probably was however long ago that was.
Like that's like gotta be 10 months ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Did y'all do y'all's GeoGuessr round yet?
Yes, yeah, I did mine Saturday. I think it was.
I did fucking ass. I lost.
Yeah, I was told I did better than you. I don't know how I did in my matchup yet, but
I did fucking terrible.
I was told that. I did good until my last one.
Bro asked me Corey McGetty. I'm like, brother, I don't know. I just guess like Dallas, Texas. I'm like, he seems like a Texas guy.
Yeah, that's valid.
Dude, no, this is why I lost, bro. I got 2,000 points because he asked me Reggie Miller, and I'm like, but Reggie Miller feels like a East Coast guy. He's from California.
You didn't know that?
Hell nah, bro.
Damn, brother, you need to start watching some 30 for 30s, my guy.
I was in diapers when he was like retiring, dog. Like, you think I know where he was born?
I mean, I was damn near just out of diapers not too long after 2003.
But
4.
here's the thing: is everybody's colleges.
For the most part, really, I only know Reggie Miller because I watched his ESPN doc about him against the Knicks like 10 times.
He just feels East Coast to me, so I was really like.
If it helps you feel any better, I didn't really get any right either. I just got lucky. I'm not gonna lie.
Nah, listen, okay. Here's my thing is that like it's the old players that screw me up because the two current players he gave me James Harden. I said like Compton instead of LA because I was trying to be corny and be more specific. But so I got like 11 miles or whatever, and then I couldn't think of what city John Morant was from, but I knew that it was South Carolina. So I just guessed South Carolina, and the capital was like 30-something miles away from where he was from.
I don't know.
So the current players, like I did really good. But then he asked me Mitch Richmond, Reggie Miller, and Bill Russell.
Bill. I know he went to San Francisco. I don't know if he's a West Coast guy, though.
He's not. But actually, my logic was a little bit different. I was like, he was drafted by St. Louis, and draft picks were kind of territorial back then. So I was like, maybe. So then I guessed Atlanta for him. He was from Louisiana. So it wasn't the worst guess.
That's a solid guess, I would say.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess for Mitch Richmond, I had no idea. So I was like, let me get somewhere that's a little centralized. I guess Columbus, Ohio. And he was from Florida. So it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't good either.
Yeah, that's like.
It's like 400.
Not as bad as guessing.
I had one like that too.
Did I guess Reggie Miller was from Philly?
Oh shit, that's rough.
That's literally why I lost, bro.
I think my worst one, like round one, I got like 1,300 something miles, and 1,100 of them were from Moses Malone alone. I guess he was from like, again, didn't know where he was from. I'm like, he seemed like a Southern guy.
Is he from Michigan?
No, he's from Virginia.
Oh, that's right. He gave me somebody from Michigan, I think.
Yeah, which makes sense because I think his. No, he was out of high school. Anyways, I guess Dallas, Texas. I'm like, you know what? If I go Texas, I have to go Dallas because it's farthest up north. That's a big city. And I'm thinking like maybe he's from like Mississippi or something like that. Like that's what I'm thinking. Like, so I'm like, that's like 100 miles or so. Nah, that ended up being like 1,100 miles or something like that. So that was a bad one. And there was a couple guys, I guess, for like Detroit. I forget. There was one guy that was from Indiana. Zach Randolph is from Indiana. Did not know that. And there's somebody else, I guess, like Detroit, and they ended up being from like DC. It was an older guy. I forgot his name. But yeah, my scores actually weren't that bad. They were okay. I got a few right.
Yeah, I was lucky. I did not know where players were from. So I think my first four, I was all like 300 to 450 miles away. So like I didn't do great on any of them, but I didn't be terrible on one, so I was okay. The only one I thought I should have done better on was Pau Gasol. I couldn't remember if he was Madrid or Barca, and I said Madrid, which was wrong.
Those weren't that far away though.
No, it was only like 300 and some miles, so it wasn't too bad.
Oh, it's that much? I thought they were a lot closer.
Yeah, no, Madrid's pretty centered, and Barca's up in the top right corner. But yeah, and then my last one was Darius Garland. I had no idea, and I said somewhere in Arizona.
Is he a Virginia guy?
Negative.
Darius Garland, he went to,
or is he Tennessee? He might be Tennessee.
He went to Vandy.
Hold on, don't tell me. Don't tell me. It's not Kentucky. Or is it?
I would guess North Carolina. That's out the blue, but
he's one of those states down there. He's one of them.
It's not South, I'll tell you that.
It's not?
It's not South. He went to
I
high
really-
school in Tennessee.
That's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah. Which is, I was thinking South. Not that I was quite in the right area, but
I'm gonna go Indiana.
yeah. And Garrett told me before too, it was kind of funny, and I was like, why is it kind of funny? It's because he's from Gary, Indiana.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Jeez.
I was like, yeah, okay, so that ended me then, but I say ended me. I don't know if I'm through yet or not. And I don't think Bryce has done his round yet, but
Yeah, I don't know. I won my first round matchup. I don't know who's in the second round yet. Or I do know. I'm just waiting on the result.
right.
I forgot which ones I got right. I think the first one was Steph Curry, which
Yeah.
I know he's from Akron.
Yeah.
Glad I know that. He gave me Jason Tatum, which was like the easiest one out of everyone because
St.
it's
Louis.
Tatum. Yeah. I got another one right. I got to think about it.
That's what I'm saying. The current players, that's just easy. The old players, no idea.
Is it? Is it easy? I don't know if it is. Especially with guys moving to high schools. Like, I was just assuming Garland was from Tennessee.
Where do you think Trae Young's from?
Didn't we talk about this?
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
talked about feeling like he's an
He's a
Oklahoma
Texas guy, but
he's
I thought he was
Texas, yeah.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Went to high school in Oklahoma too. Yeah, that's just a double whammy. Okay.
I think I was like 7 miles off of Lowry because I don't know any like cities in Finland. So I just
Right.
guessed Finland. And like the
Probably in Helsinki
capital.
or just outside Helsinki.
Yeah, it was like 7 miles away from Helsinki. So
Yeah.
dang, I do not remember the other players that I got. The McGetty one was tough. I just didn't know where he was from. I think he was in Indiana. No, he was Illinois, like Southern Illinois. Sebo was not too far from Detroit. God, who am I? I'm missing somebody. I think all my guys were like Midwest to East Coast guys too, which I don't think I got any out of the West Coast, except for Lowry, who was overseas.
Yeah.
Oh, Kareem, I was off by like 11 miles because I said Brooklyn instead of Harlem.
Fair.
Kareem can throw people off because he feels so West Coast.
Yeah, school out there, Lakers.
Yeah.
Gosh. I do not remember who else I got. Moses Malone was bad. McGetty. There was one older player too. I had no idea where he was, but I was only a few 100 miles off.
Oh, well, almost 3 hours in. Should we call it a stream?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. We'll give it another week and we'll probably have another batch of signings, but
Summer League coming up too, so preview that
yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, very we talked about it a bit on Twitter, but very weird start to free agency. It was like very much expecting this to be the last few years where we get 10, 12 signings in the first half an hour. And it's just like
Luke Cornett.
Luke Cornett, Kevin Love re-signing in the first
Yeah.
hour. That is it. Yeah, it was interesting, but got a few more guys that'll sign outside of the first weekend at least. So it's gives us a little bit more to talk about next week, if nothing else. But nonetheless, that'll be it for us this week. If you did enjoy and you haven't yet, be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel. We will be sure to be back to give our thoughts on all the other remaining free agents from the likes of Buddy Hield and Damar, being some of the biggest names left as they get signed over the next week or so. But until then, we got Summer League on the horizon, as you mentioned, Reek. So it's the lovely thing of the NBA calendar. There's usually always something going on. So we'll be sure to stay tuned with that over the next couple of weeks. But until then, hope you guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.